Welcome to St. Louis, Missouri, home of the four-day Gateway Cup, one of the legendary races on the American road racing calendar. With a deep history, a rough year this year in 2021 as we celebrate virtually and welcome everyone to the 2021 virtual Gateway Cup presented by Echelon Racing League. Today, the Giro della Montagna. We're going to Benton Park tomorrow, but a big day of racing on tap today. My name is Brad Soner here with Frankie Andreu for another weekend of racing here at the Echelon Racing League as we continue to pivot here in 2021 in a bizarre year where we have filled our year with virtual racing this year. And Frankie, it has been an honor to have you joining us over the last couple weeks of racing here. Before we get to the racing today, Frankie, I want to go back to last week as we had a really exciting finish there, a close one on the line. You remember we saw the draft racing rider trying to get away but getting caught right at the line before Ollie Jones moves ahead to take the win. So an exciting finish last week at the Thompson-Bucks County Classic. We also had the Armed Forces Cycling Classic last week, which was another nail-biter at the finish line here, Frankie. Seemed like both days we saw it really come down to the line as the riders got into the holiday spirit, a little bit of holiday racing before. But watching Neil Austenfeld here surging to the line at the very end, this was super exciting to watch because Austenfeld had been on the hunt for a win for a long time here, Frankie. He ends up taking a win by just 0.021 seconds. You want to talk about a close one? And how exciting was it to watch him go to the line? I mean, the guy was ecstatic when he finally hit the line and finally got the win. So it was really exciting watching Neil Austenfeld finally get a win 2 weeks ago, actually, at the Armed Forces Cycling Classic.
Yeah, what was exciting is seeing the riders also take a flyer. I mean, some of these guys almost made it to the finish line, but really the key in these two events really came down to the sprint. I mean, timing that sprint, and you saw how close those distances were, 0.021 seconds. I mean, it really comes down to timing it. Austenfeld did an incredible ride, and Ollie Jones, very good rider for him to be able to take that win at Bucks County. But leading into the Gateway Cup with the Giro della Montagna, a little bit different than what we saw at Bucks County or at the Air Force race, as this has a little bit of a steep climb in it.
All right, let's take a look at how things turned out after the 2 days of racing last weekend. Ben Thomas widens his lead in the general classification at 132 points. Remember, it's a points-based Omnium series. They race for time on the stage races, and then those are converted to points based on how they place overall. So Thomas trying to hold off Matt Usborne for the Above and Beyond Cancer presented by Bike World team, although Thomas has been super consistent for Team Tour 2000 presented by Callis. Neil Austenfeld moves up to third place overall for the Evoc Bike team, the now insured team. We're going to talk about their team name change starting on January 1st, and his teammate Tom Thrall sitting in fourth place with Charlie Ravel looking pretty good in fifth place here as well, Frankie.
Yeah, a very tight competition, and Thomas actually got that point lead because of his finish that he did at Doylestown, finishing second in Doylestown. Austenfeld was kind of off the map there. Didn't get such a great place, but Austenfeld obviously came back with a huge win at Clarendon. So the point race and that point competition continuing to be a little bit close. But Ben Thomas, as you had mentioned, extremely consistent. After that, the places in second, third, fourth, fifth, all of them very, very close. So today's going to be a good battle for more points.
And obviously, Evoc Bike presented by Insure with their consistent riding and several riders inside the top five sitting on the top of the team standings with Ben Thomas's team, Team Tour 2000, just a few points off at 261 in second place in the team competition with Restart Racing sitting in third here. These are all solid teams here, Frank. I mean, the first five teams that we see on the team standings here, they all have multiple riders that have been major players and major aggressors in the racing.
Yeah, and they're recruiting. It's kind of interesting. It's not the riders. Riders are on the team, and they're not always just, they're not there for an entire year. So we've seen Evoc Bike presented by Insure, Team Tour, Restart Racing, Above and Beyond Cancer, Project Echelon. Project Echelon probably more of a steady roster, but the other ones definitely have been looking for the power, looking for the watch from different riders, and that's understandable. It's the winter season. It's the off season. Some guys are training, some guys aren't. So they're looking for high-end talent, and they're kind of recruiting them and bringing them on each of those individual teams.
Well, let's talk about Ben Thomas sitting on top of the leaderboard for Team Tour 2000, another squad that we've seen growing over the last few weeks as they continue to add riders as well. But, Frankie, this guy, it hasn't really been about the wins for Ben Thomas, but the consistency. I mean, not a ton of first places, but really always inside the top 10 just about every day of racing in the Echelon Racing League.
Yeah, he's consistent. I mean, the mountain bike, three-time mountain bike national champion. He owns his own coaching company, so he knows how to be able to train and how to get ready and how to peak for certain events. But as you just mentioned, it's consistency. He hasn't had that elusive win, but he's been right there with his best finish being at Doylestown. He won on Stelvio, actually, Ben Thomas. And so he's a lightweight rider, very strong rider. And, he knows mountain biking extremely well. And what is happening is he's learning the virtual world extremely well as well.
And I think you also have to keep your eye on this guy, Neil Ostenfeld, coming off a win on the last block of racing at the Armed Forces Cycling Classic. Ostenfeld has figured out how to play the game here, Frankie. I think he's one of the best players on RGT out there. It's maybe not all about the power, but this guy's definitely figured out how to be most efficient on RGT.
Well, Ostenfeld, he started racing back in 2012, and as a lot of cyclists we've seen coming from that running background, he used to be a high school cross-country runner. And so he has that aerobic engine, and that's evident when you look at the watts per kilogram, you look at how hard he can go. A fantastic win at Clarendon Cup. He was 5th at the Pattersburg race, racing for Insured Pedal Power, Evoc Bike. Ostenfeld is definitely, he's on the hunt, and he's targeting that overall now, and so that's what he's shooting for.
Well, just a couple minutes away from our race start, you can see the guys lining up on the line, and Evoc Bike bringing a squad of hitters, including Tom Thrall, another stage winner. Patrick Wall is another guy who's been super aggressive in the racing here, so I think he's been a big player in getting the wins for Ostenfeld and Thrall. And then adding some new players, including Brian Hodges, who I think we're going to see some action from out there today. So Evoc Bike bringing a solid squad out there, Frankie. This is definitely going to be a team to watch in the white, but they are changing their team name and team jerseys. They got a new sponsor starting January 1st here.
Yeah, brand new sponsor with Insured Pedal Power at Evoc Bike.
That comes with a new jersey as well. They'll be known as Insured, presented by Pedal Power. So they had some new gear waiting for them under Christmas tree this year, as we saw a few teams getting some new jerseys. Project Echelon also unveiling their Sunrise 22 jersey, raising awareness for veteran suicide. A subtle reminder that no matter how dark it gets, the sun will always rise tomorrow. And those went up for purchase online at projectechelon.com. You can support their cause and their mission. And our commissioner, Eric Hill, getting some new gear this Christmas as well with his We Are Nations Project Echelon gear. And looks like he got himself a brand new Argon 18 bike out there as well. So lots of fun gifts waiting under the tree this holiday season, Frankie, as we saw a lot of people showing off their We Are Nations gear and some new jerseys that we're going to talk about throughout the day out there today as well. So inside of a minute to start, you see our riders getting ready to go, Frankie. And again, we talk every single day about these starts and how important they are, where we see the riders ramp up the power, basically try and red line it, go into the line, and then they shoot off the line as it releases. So let's go racing. You see them starting to ramp it up right now. Look at everyone getting out of the saddle, getting ready to go, because we're within 10 seconds of race start. And there you go. Underway and rolling as Alec Jones will be first to take off the line.
Yeah, the start extremely critical. As you mentioned, 400 or 500 watts immediately from the line, and you need to be able to put that out so that you stay in that first group, and you don't want to get gapped off. But with this race course, it's 4-corner, so it sounds very basic, but there's a steep kind of uphill on the backstretch, the Giro della Montagna. It's called this for a reason. That's going to be a little bit of a kicker. Man, I don't know what grade they have it on the RGT platform, but I would say it's about like a 6 or 7%. You're going to come across the top and then have a very, very fast downhill. And that's what's going to be interesting to me, to see if riders can actually stay in contact on the fast downhill going through the start-finish line area.
You see a mad scramble for these guys to get to the front. Again, early on, this is where a lot of races are lost. You're not going to win the race here, but certainly a place to lose it. You'll see a lot of riders get gapped off earlier than they were obviously hoping. So the issue here is the riders at the back. Those are the riders that you need to watch here early on. So we're going to keep an eye on those riders as they sort things out, although looks like they're taking it pretty easy up at the front. We'll see how long that lasts here. Frankie, as we get underway and rolling, I want to bring in our in-real-life race director of the Gateway Cup. I know this is a race that you get to do every year, and a race with a lot of history. So welcoming Mike Weiss of Big Shark Racing, our real-life promoter of Gateway Cup. Mike, it must be nice being able to promote a race from your office. This has got to be the first time for you.
No, I'm extremely excited for this whole project. I think Eric Hill and yourself and Frankie and Project Echelon are maybe taking advantage of what's going on in the world right now, but I think this is going to be something we do hopefully annually.
Hey, so Mike, obviously this is a classic race. Every American bike racer, I think at some point has gone through St. Louis for the Gateway Cup. A lot of history in this race, though. I know you took the reins 10, 15 years ago, something like that, but can you just give us a brief overview of Gateway Cup, sort of where it started and how it got to where it is today?
Yeah, the race began with the Giro. It started as a singular event, and then it's had numerous locations over its 36 or 37-year history. Various, in St. Louis County, we moved all 4 events into St. Louis City, showcasing 4 unique neighborhoods. So we're starting a French neighborhood, and then we go to like sort of this real Americana neighborhood in Francis Park on Saturday. The Italian Hill neighborhood is one of the last sort of iconic Italian neighborhoods in the country. I mean, it's so tight-knit. When you enter the hill, you're entering Italy, and it's the neighborhood's fantastic. And then we go down by the brewery, Anheuser-Busch Brewery, for our Bennett Park race on Labor Day, and we've had that format now for probably about 7 years. It's kind of a keeper at this point.
We're seeing some of the classic images from Gateway Cup, including the 7-Eleven jersey, which made an appearance. Frankie, we were trying to figure out who that was. We determined it wasn't you. We're still trying to work out which rider that was, but certainly a lot of history at Gateway Cup. Did we determine if you ever raced Gateway, Frankie?
I couldn't remember if I had ever raced Gateway Cup, and so could have been me, maybe not me, but it just goes to show you the quality of the Gateway Cup and the prestige that it has for all those races on that weekend, on Labor Day weekend. It brought out the best teams year in and year out, and it still continues to do so.
Mike, you talked about the neighborhood, the community. You call it the Hill, the area. Describe that area for me. For someone that's never been to Gateway, I mean, what is the neighborhood like? What's the area like?
Sort of post-World War II, and it's a place in St. Louis where a lot of Italian immigrants settled. So it's got a big history, and part of that European history was bringing a bike race there, and their passion for Gino Bartali and some of the history of European cycling. And the neighborhood it's sort of intact. All of the small businesses there, a lot of small, it's Bertorelli's Knife Shop. It's Joe Barbaglia and Southwest Auto Parts. It's just Mama Campisi's is on the course. It's like these classic St. Louis restaurants on every corner. And, it's the start of the race is at the St. Ambrose Parish, this really old Catholic church in the heart of the neighborhood. And the way the race starts is Father Bomarito walks out, blesses the race, and then it's on. And it's every year you just get that flavor.
We got to get a virtual Father Bomarito out here to virtually bless our riders. And then, of course, the Italian flag on the finish line, something that you can't miss when you come to watch the race in person. You see it in all the pictures and videos. The giant Italian flag on the line that I understand stays there year-round.
Yeah, I mean, this neighborhood, this is one of their biggest neighborhood fundraisers. They take it as an opportunity to just really make it the party. I mean, so it's one of the best days in St. Louis. It's huge. I mean, there's a lot of great bike racing in the United States, and I think the Giro is a pretty uniquely awesome venue. It's most racers' favorite race of the weekend.
And Frankie, I know you always talk about this race because it's your favorite lunch of the year. We rate the races that we go to based on the lunch that you get. I have to imagine the Giro della Montagna Day has a pretty sweet staff lunch.
Yeah, right next to St. Ambrose Church, they have, I just call it the food court, or you can go over there and get, a pasta, a kielbasa, the toasted ravioli, a ton of different options. And right along that start-finish line, as Mike was just saying, there's the Italian coffee shop. You can get some gelato right behind the start-finish line. You can get an espresso just down the road, Italian restaurant at turn number 4, an Italian restaurant down at turn number 1. And so you're surrounded by this community that comes out and just has a great time cheering all the riders on. And they, I have a blast announcing, and the riders definitely love the event.
Yeah, let's take a look at this course. It's a pretty straightforward 4-corner course, but a little bit of a hill coming off of the line. Obviously, that's why they call it the Hill neighborhood. There is some elevation gain in the area. It's really just heading into turn 1, Frankie, and then that downhill on the backside. It looks like a pretty fast course. I mean, the racing seems like it would be pretty intense, especially on the backside coming out of turn 2.
Yeah, coming out of turn 2 is where the hill starts to gradually go up. And like I said, in real life, it's probably a 6-7% grade where it goes up to turn number 3. So you have to fight for position. You need to be in a good position because between turns 3 and 4, it's very short. And then you fly a very fast downhill sprint also, which is something to keep in mind for these riders, having to start their sprint a little bit earlier because it's going to be a downhill sprint leading in towards the start-finish line. But simple 4-corner crit, but at the same time, complicated because of the hill.
And obviously plenty of opportunities to enjoy the race both before and after. One of, I think, the few races in America where we see riders hang out for the rest of the day. I think a lot of times you're anxious and eager to get back to the hotel or back to host housing and get your feet up and get some rest, but everyone always seems to hang out at Gateway Cup and enjoy the racing and enjoy the neighborhood. One of the fun parts about the racing there. All right, checking back in with our field, Frankie. Still nobody getting away. These guys still all together at 43 kilometers to go. Haven't seen the split, and actually a pretty large group. I'm pretty impressed by how many riders have been able to stay in this group. Frankie, it really seems like the riders in the Echelon Racing League are getting better and better at playing the game, at understanding the RGT platform and really understanding how to best utilize their power on the platform. Because there are some unique parts of the game that we've been discovering. The drafting is important, the teamwork is important, how you ride through the corners is important, and so it seems like a lot of these riders have just a few races under their belt on the RGT platform, but they're learning very, very quickly.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a learning curve, and it's the cornering that I think is the biggest part for trying to adapt and figure out the platform, which they have been able to figure out, and how when you're flying into a turn, it automatically decreases your speed so you can get a little bit of recovery, and then you have to be careful on increasing that power and kicking it out of the turn, but not too much to where you're wasting a lot of energy coming all the way up to the front. But otherwise, a lot of the other parts are similar to other virtual platforms where you're just putting out that big power.
Check out these numbers from the Armed Forces Cycling Classic. I thought this was interesting. These are the top 5 power performers. So these are the 5 riders with the highest average watts per kilogram. But look at the places where they ended up. Matt Usborne put out just over 5 watts per kilogram over the hour-long race, but only ended up 9th. Matt McKinney at 4.97 ends up 17th. Hal Blackburn puts out the 3rd best overall power of the race, ends up 14th. It's the smart riders that were doing well at the Armed Forces Cycling Classic. Neil Ostenfeld was 17th in average power, but ended up taking the win at the Armed Forces Cycling Classic. So it's really not about how much power you create, Frankie. It's about where you use it and being able to play the game. So there is a gaming element to this, just like real life racing. You can go out and train all you want, but if you're attacking on the first lap of racing, you're probably not going to have a very good day out there.
Yeah, a little bit of a strategy. And in that upper left-hand corner on the screen, you can see that green where it says saving 300 watts, saving 200 watts, depending on where the riders are in the group. That's a huge saving. If you're putting out, 450 watts and you only have to put out 300, your heart rate's going to come down. You're going to be able to recover, and it's going to make a big difference. And so those that can sit in and be able to figure out the draft and the cornering have a little bit of an advantage. And you know what? No surprise to me that Usborne, that we see right here on the screen, actually had huge watts, because last race, all he did was attack, trying to be able to get into a breakaway. huge amount of power coming from him. He wasn't really waiting around for that finish, but definitely proved that he's a very strong rider and somebody to keep an eye on.
Yeah, it looks like riders starting to attack off the front here a little bit. You see some separation as the group strings out. One rider trying to get away. This is Vujesen, the Belgian, doing 7 watts per kilo. You can see the numbers light up in red off to the right-hand side of their names. That tells you when they're going into their red zone. And here's Usborne trying to chase it down. So he is definitely putting in an effort to chase this move. Now, this is Canyon Esports on the front, Frankie. The team of Ollie Jones, winner of the Bucks County Classic just a couple weeks ago. This is another solid squad, another team that is probably one of the more well-organized squads out there. They definitely have some communication. They definitely know what they're doing, and this may even be a setup move for another Canyon Esports rider.
Well, Vujesen, he's an incredibly good rider. He's actually the Belgian Zwift national champion. He comes from a mountain biking background. And so that was a pretty good move, especially when you got Jaden Yager with him, who's like probably the heaviest rider in the race, can probably put out the most watts in the race. That was a good combination where these alarm bells went off in that peloton. You can see, look at that, 10.5, 11.2, as Moen now is on the attack. So big response coming from the riders in the race.
And Vujesen definitely put in an effort. Saw him trying to recover here, but probably did some damage at the back of the group. That's him in the Canyon Esports kit. Looks like Jem Rozic going off the front. Now, this is another interesting guy that's been racing in the tie and vest T-shirt. We'll see if he's still rocking that. But right now, Vujesen is shutting things down. Look at all the purple jerseys up the front. Canyon Esports is starting to amass up here at the front as I think they're trying to set something up here, Frankie. Seems like maybe they want to split this, try and get a group going off the front.
Well, I think they're just trying to accumulate at the front to make sure that they can cover any kind of move. They just saw what a massive effort that last one was. And so Vujesen has kind of shown his cards. He's somebody to be able to watch out for. And so, a lot of these riders are reacting to this right now. But if they can get into a breakaway, they'll definitely try to take advantage of that. But right now, the speed, 43 kilometers per hour. It's got that slope of going up 4%, 5%. It gradually increases as they go around turn number 3. It's going to flatten out towards turn number 4, and then a very, very fast downhill. We see Usborne once again on the attack at 6 watts per kilogram.
It looks like he's going to get a little bit of help if he can latch on to this. Now, these riders can work together. There's definitely an element of being able to draft off of a group of riders, but it's pretty hard to get it dialed in, especially when there's no communication with the other riders. Obviously, the teams have communication with each other. We're going to be able to listen in on some Discord channels a little bit later today, but you can't, in real life, communicate with the riders when you get into a move with them. So it's tough to get on the same page with your competition. It's a lot easier to get on the same page with your teammates, and so I think that's why Usborne is having such a hard time of trying to get something started here, trying to get a group away, because it's a lot tougher in virtual racing here. Don't forget, we race all of our Echelon Racing League courses in the Amateur League, as we'll be heading to the Redlands Classic out in Redlands, California, the next stop on the Echelon Racing League. Amateur is going to get a chance to race it January 16th. You can register for one of the 4 categories for men and women at echelonracingleague.com. Just click on races up at the top. A lot of fun, free to enter, and the RGT platform is also free to download and ride on. So be sure to join us for the Echelon Racing League Amateur Series, as we got a few more stops left on the series as we continue our march across the country of some of our favorite American road and criterium races. Well, look at this selection. Riders continuing to fall off the back as the inevitable happening here. It's going down to right around 20 riders, as has been the story for most of these Echelon Racing League days. So, Frankie, meet the new bosses, same as the old bosses. It's the big teams coming to the front, putting the pressure on, and spitting a lot of guys out of the back of this group.
Yeah, look at the gaps that are opening up. This drone footage is nice, being able to see some of these riders definitely suffering. One thing to keep in mind, on the bike reg, almost 70 riders registered and started the event. This is down to probably a group of 30, so very, very fast, 54 kilometers per hour right now as they're on that downhill part, but still only 15 minutes of racing. We still have a long ways to go, and it's just one attack after another attack. As Blodgett was on the front right there at a 5.6, as Usborne was coming over the top at 8.1 watts per kilogram. So guys are definitely look at the chase group right behind, and that's where it's critical, as Brad, you well know. If you don't get on immediately, you're never getting on.
Yeah, we talked about the different power zones. You can see the zone that the riders are in based on the color bar to the very left of the screen. There's just a tiny little line to the left of the number that tells you what zone relative to their FTP that they are in. You also see the scale up there at the top left of your screen. But it's always interesting to watch the guys at the back, the ones that are about to get dropped, because they always have to put in the biggest effort in the race. It goes back to what we talked about earlier, Frankie. You can put out all the watts in the world, but if you're not using them at the right time, you can't stay in the group and you're not riding efficiently. Not going to do you any good. So you can come out here and do 20 watts per kilogram all day long, but, well, actually that would probably be enough if you weren't in the group. That was maybe a little bit too much of an exaggeration, but you get the point. You got to be smart in racing on RGT.
Yeah, Canyon Esports all over the front with those purple and blue jerseys. Kaminsky, a rider from Poland, racing for Canyon Esports, has come up to the front, kind of patrolling things, making sure that nothing gets away.
Yeah, what a program, Canyon Esports, with both a pro program and then a pretty sizable sort of amateur squad out there as well. They do these virtual races really all over the country, all over the world, on just about every platform out there. The Canyon Esports team was one of the really first squads to adopt esports as a legitimate racing discipline. In fact, it started well before the pandemic. They saw potential of racing on platforms like Zwift and RGT, and one of the first squads to sort of formalize it with their own jerseys, getting sponsors, getting a squad together. So it's been really cool to watch the Canyon Esports team grow and continue to thrive over the last few weeks, and seeing the new teams coming out as well, the new teams forming with the pandemic, and certainly existing road teams taking to these virtual racing platforms. It's been a lot of fun to watch them joining in as well, like we saw with Tibco SVB on the women's side last week. Some exciting racing as we had Lauren Stevens joining us. We're also going to see Kristen Faulkner joining this week for the Tibco SVB squad. Some of those real-life riders coming to the virtual platform. But Frankie, it's not always an easy transition. We've seen a lot of riders that do really well in real life on the road come to RGT, and, well, it hasn't been so easy.
Yeah, you talked about a little bit of a learning curve trying to figure out the draft. I mean, you could be the strongest roadie and you're going to, come on over to this. And you know what? That was noticeable in esports world championships, the UCI eSport world championships. A lot of strong riders in there. Some surprise winners, as it's just different riding in a group like this. Taking advantage of that draft and being able to sit on and coast. A lot of that doesn't exist. And so it's something that there's a bit of a learning curve, and some riders are figuring it out. And the way to figure it out is just by doing the events. The more experience you get, the better off you are. And you talked about Canyon Esports, well represented on many of the different platforms. And same with a lot of these other riders that put together the new teams that have come together with a great group of riders to be able to kind of go out there, and they're strong. They're dominating performances of what we've seen in different races.
Yeah, it's maybe an advantage for the riders that are just coming to the sport that don't have that experience of racing in real life, because there's nothing to unlearn, right? You learn so many things from racing in person that sometimes you try to apply those to virtual racing when maybe you shouldn't. And so the riders that start on a virtual racing platform, I think, have a little bit of an advantage. They don't have those bad habits to unlearn. So it's nice to see the new names, but certainly hoping that those riders take their skills outside once this whole pandemic thing is over and join us at some of our in real life races out there. See some more of the teams. The Above and Beyond Cancer squad of Matt Usborne, another solid squad racing here in the Echelon Racing League, really committing to the series of racing. And then Evoc Bike now insured with their squad, including Neil Ostenfeld and Tom Thrall, both stage winners here. I think Evoc Bike might be my pick today here, Frankie. I think just the number of riders that they have that can win here makes it tough. Ben Thomas really relies on his Team Tour 2000 Callis riders, but it seems like he's the finisher for the squad. Evok Bike has several riders that can finish for a win.
Yeah, they got a strong team with Evok Bike, but Canyon SRAM also has that kind of European presence there with strong riders, as we see Warner going up the road right now. So this is a big attack. It's going to be interesting to see if a breakaway is going to be able to establish itself, which I think will be difficult to do, or if it's going to come down to the sprinters. And what we've seen, we've seen Tom Thrall, we've seen Ben Thomas, we've seen Austenfeld, all of them able to time their sprints pretty perfectly. And so they're going to be thinking about trying to repeat that. I mean, if you can win once doing a sprint, you're going to sit in and try to do it again.
Yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? One of the oldest adages in the world. I think you're right. Evok Bike might as well just keep trying to do what they have been doing best. Team Tour 2000, you see their roster with, I think, 4 riders starting. There's a minimum of 4 riders that have to race. They can race up to 6 riders from their roster each day, and I think they have 12 riders total on the roster that they're allowed to choose in between events. So not all riders will race every race of the Echelon Racing League, but the guys that are in the GC hunt, they will. Those will be the names that you see over and over every week. Obviously, they want to make sure that they're maximizing their chance of getting points out there. So the GC riders will sort of try to make sure that they're racing every day. Nice to see the Gateway Devo cycling team in here as well. Frankie, this is a squad we see all over the country, one of the premier Devo teams in the country, and nice to see them participating in our virtual Gateway Cup here as well.
Yeah, some 19-year-olds and some 20-year-olds on the Gateway development team, and it is good to be able to see them in here. Same with like Team California, some young riders being able to have an opportunity to be able to race in this, and also the local team from Mike's Big Shark Racing from the bike shop, the Pastoria team with Devin Clark, Cooper, Dunn, and Hines. They're not as young, this group, but it's a good combination of the young guys getting the experience and the old guys trying to be able to teach the young guys a lesson. But Usborne, perfect example. I mean, this guy just goes and goes and goes. He talked about him being a former pro mountain biker. I think in 2019, he won the Major Taylor Criterion. And so, he's good out on the road in real life, and he's really proving himself to be a formidable opponent here in the virtual life.
Certainly not afraid of attacking, that's for sure. Usborne is a guy that's not afraid of being out there by himself. He's not afraid of trying to start something. You'll see him solo a lot, I think, throughout the next couple days of racing here at the Gateway Cup. Just seems to be the way that he rides. He doesn't like to be content. He's never complacent in the group. If things get easy, Usborne always seems to be the one that says, hey, let's go. Let's try and up the tempo here. So we'll be keeping an eye on him for the Above and Beyond Cancer team throughout the day. Zach Nair making his way up to the front. This is one of the Project Echelon riders. Nair was actually the director at the Esports World Championships for Team USA. I think he was one of our assistant director sportifs for Team USA. As we take a look up above of the group, Frankie, this is a tiny, tiny group. That can't be more than 20 riders.
No, small group. And Vujasan, again, on the front, the Belgian Zwift national champion coming back up to the front, racing for Canyon Esports. So he's patrolling, making sure that things aren't going to get away from him. Thrall, also the winner of all 3 stages of Tour de Gila, kind of following those moves. And so, 24 minutes in, I'm going to say, we need to get another 10 or 15 minutes. We need to kind of get to that 45-minute mark where I think we're going to see a few more riders end up dropping off the pace. It's been a fast race. There's a lot of power going out. And what happens is you just gradually just kind of wear down. As it looks like they're about to lap a big group of riders. Look at this Project Echelon, almost like a group attack. These guys might have all got on Discord and started talking with each other, but this really looks like a concentrated, focused effort right now.
Yeah, actually, we're going to see if we can listen in to the Project Echelon Discord here and see if we can pick up any chatter from these guys, because you're right, it looked like they had something in mind as they put those guys up at the front. Let's listen in for just a minute here. A lot of heavy breathing, a lot of rustling around. We're going to keep this up. We'll see if we can hear any conversation from this Project Echelon Discord here, because I do want to hear what the conversation is like, Frankie, and how much these guys really can work together. It's got to be tough to organize it on the platform like this, but I know that they have been trying. Meanwhile, here's Charlie Velez up on the front for Canyon Sports. This was another stage winner. Here's some conversation there on the Project Echelon Discord about what to do about Velez up here on the front. Let's take a listen here real quick.
Well, it's got to be pretty difficult to be able to put out this kind of effort with this kind of heart rate, and then also be able to talk to your teammates.
Exactly. You can probably bank on this coming to a sprint. So don't follow anybody unless it's like the right combination of guys.
Okay. Well, you can see here, because of the high speed, they're thinking that it's going to come down to a field sprint. But again, for the riders, you hear that breathing, but it's very hard to talk with each other. And it'll, they're only going to speak when it's like absolutely critical. If somebody's taking a flyer, and it'd be interesting to see if they actually say for a certain rider, like, "Hey, you need to chase this down," or "You need to chase this down," or if it's just a general requirement saying, "Hey, somebody needs to go."
Yeah, you heard him say, don't chase any moves unless you have to. They're sensing that things are about to get a little more heated than they are right now, and I think Zach Nair was just giving a little bit of advice to his group saying, hey, don't fall for the bait. Don't worry about these moves that go up the road. We got plenty of time, 28 kilometers of racing to go, so he was warning the riders saying, don't get too jumpy here because moves are going to start going. Guys like Matt Usborne are going to start rolling off the front. We don't need to chase everything down immediately. So moves like this are exactly what they were talking about.
Yeah, but he's a dangerous rider. Bujasan, I've talked about that, Zwift Belgian national champion. He manages a Nike store in Belgium. He speaks 3 languages also, and so he's comfortable racing in the virtual world with his experience from Canyon Esports and from Zwift racing, but also comfortable at racing in real life. And so he's a dangerous one to watch out for. But now, kind of switch as Jamerzik has come over the top and decided to go on the front from Project Echelon. So this is a good move by them. Nice move by this team.
Jim Rozic going solo off the front here as Jaden Yeager is going to take up chasing efforts back in the field. Again, another bold move here, the solo move off the front for Jim Rozic, hoping he can bring maybe a few riders with him, but certainly going to be tough to do this one alone.
And that's one thing I've noticed in the other races, that when the group starts to chase, the speed that they catch whoever's in the front is just, it's a huge difference. You come in, 10, 15 miles per hour difference in that chasing group compared to when you're catching the solo guy. So that's something they're going to keep an eye out on also. But a nice move by Project Echelon, keeping the racing aggressive and trying to turn things into their favor.
And check this out. Jim Rozic brought out his St. Louis Blues flag for the Gateway Cup. Nice to see him supporting the local squad here. All right, back up the front, Ben Thomas making his appearance for the first time. Now, Thomas wears a different jersey in the game than his Team Tour 2000 teammates because he has a series leaders jersey on. It's kind of pinkish, purplish. Try and find him in here. Now, that's a Canyon SRAM jersey, but that's Thomas right behind. He's in basically second position right now, right behind that guy in the red with the orange helmet. So keep an eye out for Ben Thomas. Again, not wearing the Team Tour 2000 Callis jersey because he is in the series leaders jersey of the Echelon Racing League. Charlie Velez back on the front.
I was going to say whoever wins today gets 30 points. And so Thomas actually has a little bit of a cushion because he's leading that overall points to year. He's with 132 points, and Usborne is in second at 97. And then Ostenfeld is third with 93 points. As Velez, as you just mentioned, Canyon Esports again attacking on the front, not willing to let anything kind of go up the road without them.
Yeah, these guys definitely getting the award for most aggressive riders of the day so far, as Canyon Esports have definitely been the protagonists of the story out there today.
Velez already has a victory under his name also, taking the win at the Pattersburg. And so he's comfortable. He was fourth on the Stelvio stage. So 3 riders now. Well, it looks like Velez, Jones, and one other rider. But it looks like they're about to get
Hayden
all
Warner
3
is
groups.
the other rider.
So this is just after the downhill, the fast downhill coming through the start-finish line as they get ready to head towards turn number 1. 25 kilometers to remaining. So, I'd say good 45 minutes. I think, about 45 minutes. I think this race is probably going to end maybe an hour 7, hour 10, maybe right around there. And so still, a lot of things they need to pay attention to, and they need to judge their effort. Because again, you keep going flat out and you keep responding to all these attacks, you're not going to have anything left at the end. And so you got to save your power at some point during this race.
Yeah, how many times have we talked about the rider that wins the race being the rider that we don't really talk about during the day because they're sitting in. They're not the ones attacking early on. Ben Thomas is a great example of a rider like that. You're really not seeing Thomas up at the front a whole lot today. Neil Ostenfeld is another one, a sleeper early on, but he'll make his way up to the front if he's still in this group. Still have to take inventory of everybody in here, but I think the smartest riders and the guys that you see winning today are probably not the names that you see at the top of this leaderboard for the majority of the day out there. Hayden Warner taking on a little bit of water. I also noticed he was sipping on a Red Bull, which he has now crushed 1. I'm not sure how many he'll drink throughout the race, but got a pretty good setup going here. He's got plenty of hydration, got the LED lights going, the disco lights, and looks like he's staying cool too. We were talking earlier, Frankie, about the jerseys and the need for a new esports jersey because, let's be honest, nobody wants to wear a jersey inside. It gets super hot when you're riding on the trainer, so we're trying to work on sponsored bibs. I know we were talking about sponsored bibs and sponsored heart rate straps earlier, but one of the new problems we're encountering with virtual racing here.
Yeah, I think the sponsors, got to get some graphics on the bib straps, and it is a problem because overheating is a big problem, and that's why everybody has their shirts off, jerseys off, they have the fans on, or amazing how many people we saw riding in the colder temperatures when they were riding outside in their garage or out on the balcony in order to be able to keep cool. Ben Thomas, your current overall series leader now, coming up to the front. Alec Jones following right there. So group gradually, it takes a little bit of time, but it seems like every 5 or 6 laps, there's one more rider off the back. And so this group's dwindling down now to maybe 20, 25 riders.
Yeah, look at Thrall in the red zone at the back trying to cover that gap and get back in there, get back into the group, and then as soon as you get to the front, you got to let off the gas. There's also an art of chasing back on, too. You don't want to overcompensate and sort of oversurge when you get up to the front. Here's Bowen making an appearance for the first time up on the front, trying to lift the tempo here. I should say keep it lifted because look how many riders are in the red zone here. They are going deep here, Frankie. This is a sustained, long effort on the front. Big effort from these front 4 riders.
Yeah, many times as you'd mentioned, you have the power coming out of the corner and you're trying to make sure that you don't get dropped, and all of a sudden you find yourselves all the way into the front. So I think that's a little bit what happened with Edward Bowen racing for Cardiac Athletes out of Chicago, Illinois.
Look at the split here as Moen tries to close the gap, bringing one of the Evoc bike riders up with him. Nice little show of teamwork there. And then see if he's going to let off the gas or keep pushing here, keep going. Seeing a lot of riders, Frankie, on the Zoom camera starting to hydrate and eat as we get down to it. 21.7 kilometers of racing to go. Important for these riders to keep the calories flowing and keep drinking, keep eating, and keep drinking, especially on the trainer. A lot of these riders sweat so much indoors that you really have to focus on replenishing the food and water out there. And as a lot of riders have told us, it is really tough to eat on the bike. I know you come across that in real life, Frankie, where you're climbing a hill, you're deep in the box, you don't really want to eat, but you know you have to because you don't want to bonk. Same thing on the trainer. It can be really tough for these guys to stay fed and hydrated.
It'd be hard because your heart rate is pegged. I mean, you're going flat out, and it's probably more important eating during these virtual races, or at least having some kind of a sugary intake, because it's just redline. You're just redline the whole entire time, and so you're just burning a ton of energy, a ton of glucose. So very, very difficult. You got to make sure to be able to kind of keep topped off so that you have something near the end. But you can see a lot of riders struggling near the back. I think right now we're at a group of about 21 riders. Some riders, are dangling, you could say. Somebody's punching tickets back there. And so 20 kilometers to go, that's a lot of racing still to go. So this group, as we have started off with 70, down to about 21. I got a feeling we're going to come down to a group of maybe 5 or 6 by the finish.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. In real life, no big deal to get dropped at the Giro della Montagna, because that just means you can get to the toasted ravioli a little bit quicker, get there before the rest of the field does. I want to bring Mike Weiss back in to talk a little bit about this legendary food that I've heard so much about here at the Hill.
The Hill
it's like
it's Italian markets and restaurants. Visitors and locals alike flock to this historic neighborhood for a taste of Italy right here at home.
The Hill is the Italian section in St. Louis. It's physically, geographically on a hill. And it's always been a great little neighborhood. And through the years, we've held our own here. And it's still a great neighborhood.
When the Hill got famous, or it really gained popularity, everybody wanted to be on the Hill. We had guys way down Southampton, I'm on the Hill, that kind of thing. It's kind of like an icon now, for St. Louis.
The Hill is still very much an authentic hometown, old school place.
It really does have that small town feel, it's like its own city. There's a lot of tradition, there's a lot of history, obviously. Come and park and just take a walk.
There are a lot of excellent options for eating, for sure. Our recipes are still the old Italian recipes. We still make almost all of our food from scratch here.
Everything we make is an old-fashioned or old world way. Everything's from scratch.
We're kind of like a special occasion place, so we're really entree heavy when it comes to what we sell.
There's some great restaurants.
Church and stores and parks. I would say just take a stroll. It's just a great community. There's something on every corner.
There's 3 Hall of Famers that actually come from this area. You got Yogi Berra, Joe Garagiola, and Jack Buck. And they all lived on the same block.
For out-of-towners, I would say don't miss the Hill. I mean, the Hill is just really a unique neighborhood. It's kind of a throwback.
The Hill is a great place. There's a lot to see. The preservation of this neighborhood, it says a lot in itself.
I don't know how you could possibly race your bike with that much food around. Mike, I'm going to put you on the spot here. If you had to pick, gun to your head, what's your favorite restaurant on the Hill? You got to pick one. It's your last day, your last chance to eat on the Hill. Where are you going?
There's a lot of people that I could offend with that question. Too many. My family's favorite restaurant is Lorenzo's on the Hill. That's been my dad's Italian, and that's been our go-to place. But it's really hard to pick. Like Charlie Guido, you just featured in that video. He just unfortunately passed away, and he's just an icon. All these guys, Bartolino's. It's the whole food chain there. It's bakeries. It's Volpe's fine foods and cutlery and sausage. It's all made there. It's kind of like its own little Italian ecosystem. Mama Campese's was featured on the Food Network. I think they serve a 14-pound meatball. I'm not sure if you can handle that, but it's just amazing.
It'd be good for a team too. And I was going to say, I always hear about the toasted ravioli from the church on the course as well.
Yeah, they have their own special entree for the hill. It's I think it will kill you if you have more than two. It's called the Dogaloni, and it's a deep fried salsiccia on a stick. And it's, I think a guy owns an auto parts store there, Joe Barbalia at Southwest Auto Parts. It was his idea, and you can always go there and get a Dogaloni. The salsiccia is great, and of course toasted rav is claimed to originate on the Italian Hill neighborhood.
I'm adding the Dogaloni to my list of things to do before I die. Mike, thank you so much. And go ahead and start making reservations for us for 2021. I want to make sure we get a good table for Gateway Cup this year. Frankie, you ever had a Dogaloni? They have those up in Michigan?
Wake up, and the food is incredible. Right across from St. Ambrose Church, they just renovated a plaza like a couple years ago. Beautiful plaza, and that little taste of St. Louis that they showed really does capture the essence and the atmosphere of the area that the Giro della Montagna races around. And so, one part they can't capture really is how much the community gets behind the bike race and how many fans come out and they set up the tents and have their bars. You're racing along the back stretch, and you can smell, the burgers and bratwurst being barbecued and cooked while everybody's riding by. And so, like a lot of races, St. Louis embraces the bike race, and it's a giant party, and there happens to be, a few hundred bike riders kind of traveling around on their streets. It's a lot of fun.
One of the classic neighborhood events of St. Louis. Meanwhile, watching some guys rolling off the front here. This is Warner and Hardin that we're trying to split earlier. While we were in that food package, we did see a small break of 3 going. They were chased down pretty quickly because guys like Charlie Velez getting up to the front and shutting down just about every move that goes. So it's been tough for these guys trying to get away. Checking in on some of our social media channels. John Hamblin saying Zach Nair for the win. We saw and heard Zach communicating on the Project Echelon Discord earlier. Be sure to let us know in the chat.
Yeah, a little bit earlier, that it was Jaden Yager and Matt Usborn, 3 powerful riders. And so, they were brought back. And so these guys are paying attention right now to, getting down to 15 kilometers to go. So not a lot of time. So they're really starting to mark each other and trying to be able to make sure that they're staying up at the front. But going back to the St. Louis, with the Gateway Cup, it's over Labor Day. It's more. Obviously there's Giro della Montagna. Tomorrow you're covering Benton Park, which is one of the other races. But there's also a great 2 other races, which is Lafayette Park and Tour de France's Park. 4-corner fast, almost NASCAR style criteriums. Those are the first 2 days. The third day you come into the hill here, which kind of is the leg breaker. And then the final day, which is Benton Park, which RGT will be covering tomorrow, is a very technical course. Arguably, you could almost say it's the hardest of the courses because of how many turns are involved in it. But it's 4 days of great races, and every kind of park, every community kind of has its own atmosphere, pretty much its own atmosphere of how it's like to be there and what it's like to race there.
Well, Gateway Cup, just one of several events still to go on the Echelon Racing League calendar. We'll head to the Gateway Cup after this. Then Joe Martin Stage Race and Tour of America's Dairyland a little bit later, a couple months from now in March. Some more classics on the American racing calendar, pro road tour events, and just classic American road and criterium events that Project Echelon and the Echelon Racing League have been trying to visit here on the RGT platform. By the way, the cool part about this platform and the reason that we're racing here on RGT is because we can put those real-life courses in the game. So the riders right now are racing on a virtual course of the Giro della Montagna, the course that we've been talking about all day today. It is a virtual version of that 4-corner course, including the elevation gain on the hill. So they get a chance to race real-life courses here on RGT. Jim Rosick in a little bit of trouble, getting dropped off the back here after some early efforts, Frankie, but looks like he's going to be able to get back in.
No, that was weird. Almost looked like he had a technical glitch because he was like off the front until all of a sudden he had no output, and he was totally off the back, and then it kind of re-clicked, re-registered, and then obviously he was putting out full power to make sure he was able to rejoin the group. So he did a good job. But just a minute ago, also we saw Hayden right there. We see in a heap of trouble in the back, trying to be able to stay on there. Rider from Above and Beyond Cancer took a third at Borrego Springs, and so maybe he's wearing down a little bit, or again, maybe just kind of adjusting to all the corners. Obviously, racing at Borrego Springs race and racing a Criterium on 4 corners is a little bit different, and so a little bit of an adjustment. You can see the gaps that open up every time they come around a turn, so the riders in the front have a little bit of an advantage of being able to ease off the power compared to the guys in the back who are out of the saddle sprinting, like we see from Hardin.
Well, some folks commenting on what we called a flat course. It's relatively flat, I should say, compared to some of the other courses that we've done here on RGT, as we did real roads courses like the Stelvio earlier in the series. But, yeah, the hill in this one is no joke. They're definitely going to be feeling it at this point in the race. Frankie, they're going to be looking at 5 laps to go when they hit the line next time here at just over 12K to go. So getting down to it and starting to get down to that time where if you're not a good sprinter in this race, you have to try to make your split. You have to try to get away soon if you don't want to take this one down to the line with 5 laps to go.
Yeah, this is a tough course. I mean, you're doing 30 laps. That means 30 times of having to put out, let's say 450 watts or more each time when you get onto the hill, trying to be able to get over that 5-6% grade. And so that's almost a repeated interval, a repeated effort. And so after a while, you're not going to be able to do that anymore. The strongest will be able to stay into the front. So, no, Giro della Montagna, a very difficult course. It's a tough one. And as you said, some guys, if they don't want down to a sprint and they have to take into account turns 3 and 4, it's a little bit flat, and it's a downhill sprint. So it's going to be a little bit different of when they time their sprint to be able to cross that finish line.
All right, so there you go. Lap counter showing up at 5 to go as the riders go under the banner. By the way, you see that yellow banner that they've also been going under. That is the basically the Flamme Rouge, the 1K to go marker. So it's a good indicator of where they are on the virtual course when you see them go under that yellow arch. That's a kilometer away from the line, so we'll see them head under that 5 more times before they wrap this one up. Usborne back on the front, pushing the pace. Melville is going to respond and lift the tempo here as well. You're going to start to see the average watts per kilogram lift over the next 5 laps, Frankie. They just sort of slowly ratchet it up here over the next 10 minutes or so as they get ready for the march to the line for the final time here. So last selection going to be made here in the next lap or so. Then we'll see some last lap attacks, the desperate late race moves, and then I'm thinking this one probably ends in a bunch sprint the way things have been going so far.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. You got to watch, as you mentioned, Brad, the kind of the power colors on the left-hand side, those oranges and blues, and who's going to be in the red is Moen now just went into the red. Immediate reaction from Velez and Jager and Usborne. Usborne, look at that, 14 watts per kilogram. I mean, that is massive to be able to put out that effort. And so sometimes normal, you might be able to get 14 watts per kilogram for like 10 seconds. Usborne, he ramps it up and then keeps it going right now, still at 7 watts per kilogram. So I think the Canadian Usborne's on an attack right now. He's not waiting around for a sprint. He wants to try to break this up.
Yeah, this guy's ridiculous. A natural talent when it comes to wattage for the Above and Beyond Cancer presented by Bike World team. Looks like he's going to take Jaden Yeager with him, another standout rider in this field who's taken some time off from the Echelon Racing League after his stint at the Esports World Championship. So this is a dangerous duo, Frankie. If you get Usborne and Yeager together, these are 2 Mack trucks on the trainer. So those alarm bells better be ringing back in the field.
Yeah, Jaden Yeager, I mean, he's a big rider, and like I mentioned, probably the heaviest rider in the race. So he has some big power, but you can see the field reacting to that immediately. And Usborne, look at him, he's sitting up a little bit, trying to catch his breath, but that was a big move we just had with under 5 laps to go. And so now a little bit of a reshuffling of the deck as everybody's trying to be able to pretty much fight for position, because when those attacks go, you have to be a little bit near the front in order to be able to get onto the wheel to get the draft. If you're in the back, by the time you do that big effort, all you did is move yourself to the front, but the group is already away. So a lot of fighting for position as that pace continues to get faster and faster now coming into the final portion of the race.
I'm surprised nobody counterattacked him. Nobody tried to get rid of him after that effort because it would be a good opportunity to get rid of a star rider in this field when you had Usborne and Jaeger, although probably wasn't a hard enough effort to really crack those guys. So maybe realizing that they'd have to go a little harder than they would be able to try to get rid of those guys. Meanwhile, Hodges going from the Evoc bike team. Here's Kaminsky going away as well for Canyon Esports up the right-hand side of the road. They are starting to split. Frankie's starting to get disorganized, and look at the surging that's happening. These guys at the back start to panic a little bit, and this is where you start to see riders waste energy as well as you overcompensate for the gaps that are opening up. I think that's what happened with Melville right there, just shooting off the front. I don't think he wants to be there. He's just kind of trying to figure out how to modulate the power in the group as we go back on board with Jaden Yeager.
Jaden Yeager, Restart Racing, and he's the one in the green jersey right there. He's been in 2 breakaways that hasn't really succeeded. We've talked about him riding eSport Worlds. And going back, he was 2017 Masters Criterium National Champion. He's out of Dickerson, North Dakota. Grew up doing a lot of fishing. And so, he's hung up the fishing poles for the bike wheels, and it's proven to be very successful for him.
Alec Jones going solo off the front now for Team Tour 2000, presented by Callis. Remember, this is the team of Ben Thomas, so Thomas probably sitting back in this group loving what he's watching right now because guys like Matt Usborne and Bruce Bird of the Draft Racing team have to do the chasing to get back through as they go back under the line to 3 laps to go.
Yeah, if we remember Bucks County, it was Ruderham who did that flyer, I believe, who got caught. It looked like maybe 5 meters from the finish, but the group came up so fast. But there were definitely in each of the races, and the women's races also, riders coming in with about a K and a half. They look for a lull and they launch and they try to take a flyer to be able to hold everybody off. It'll be interesting to see which riders or which teams might be thinking about trying to do that leading into the finish of the Giro della Montagna.
Yeah, this is where strength in numbers comes in handy. This is where you need a strong team behind you, and where I'm sure some teams are wishing they had started all 6 riders that they're allowed on the roster instead of going with the minimum 4 riders, because times like this are where you can really use them. A few looks around at the group over here at the front of the field as they go back under the 1K to go banner, where they're going to see 2 laps to go next time through.
Yeah, and this is kind of where it gets a little bit more difficult. I don't want to say harder than real-life racing, but different than real-life racing, where normally, you have 5 or 6 riders on the front. Look at this. Jammer's at 9.3 watts per kilogram. Ravel reacting to it at 10 watts per kilogram. But you might have riders come onto the front, start setting up a lead-out, trying to be able to keep the pace high, trying to prevent attacking. And you as a sprinter will be able to sit in that 3rd position, not have to worry about fighting for position, take advantage of the draft, soft pedal around the corners. None of that exists in the final laps of a virtual race, and that's what makes it so difficult, because you've already put out a huge effort, for the last 53 minutes, and now you have to find it in yourself and be able to dig deep to be able to get ready for that sprint that's going to be coming up.
Ruderham back on the front. Remember, he was one of the late race escapees at the Bucks County Armed Forces weekend. Here goes Ben Thomas putting on the gas in the leader's jersey as Thomas gets some separation here. Everybody responding to that one pretty quickly here as they see 2 laps to go under the line.
Coming up on just under an hour of racing, 6.6 kilometers left to go. So they're going to go around, this would be considered turn number 1. They'll hit around turn number 2, and then they're going to have the uphill. And in their head, they're knowing if there's 2 laps to go, that means they only got to hit up this climb 2 more times. And so this could be a critical one for somebody who wants to be able to take a 1-lap flyer. But obviously the last time up the climb, really going to have to be able to go into the climb in the front and in a good position. And you can see that little bubble forming in the front of everybody wanting to be in the same spot, which is to not lose out when somebody attacks.
All right, so coming up on 6K to go here as Bird moves his way up to the front. They might have 1 more lap here, Frankie. I think we might have got the count wrong because 6K, I think, would be 3 laps, maybe 4. I'm going to get to the bottom of that. We'll get some confirmation here. But we do know 6K up at the front as Charlie Velez in the pink and purple jersey of Canyon Esports hits it again. I'm surprised nobody's gotten dropped out of this group here, Frankie, in the last 6K. I'm surprised the overall pace hasn't claimed more victims, because there's a lot of guys right now that are just on the rivet. They definitely don't have an attack left in their legs. And if someone could just keep the gas on the front for a while, I would guess they'd be able to split 5, 6, maybe 7 riders out of the back of this group.
If somebody were to put the hammer down. I mean, it's a 1 mile course. And so 1 mile course, we're coming in with 5.5 kilometers to go. Let's say we get to 5 kilometers to go. That's going to be 3 miles. So perhaps when they come around, now we're going to end up having 3 laps to go. Bird was on the front. So Bird's really fighting for position, being very aggressive. This rider has a huge functional threshold power of like 435 watts, which is like incredible. He's a big guy, 185 pounds. Coming out of Canada racing for draft racing, but he's someone you're going to have to watch out for, because in the final laps like this, he can put out a huge amount of power, and considering he's already done the work to stay in the group, I consider him to be a pretty dangerous one for the finish.
Jaden Yeager sitting up on the front with Ravel. Look at all the names that we're starting to see here, Frankie. The first 8 that you see on the screen are all names that have been hitters in the series so far. So the cream is rising to the top here late, as we are confirming 3 laps to go that time through. I don't know if anyone's going to take a flyer here.
The speed is high. I mean, 46 kilometers per hour, but we're talking about, Usborne we know is in this group, right? Ben Thomas is in this group. So these are our 2 overall race leaders racing for points, trying to get points. One rider, which last time we didn't really see, and I'm not even sure if he's in here, but Austenfeld, which we had talked about before, Brad. I'm not sure if he's in this group.
We'll try and locate Neil Austenfeld in here, winner of the Armed Forces Cycling Classic. He'll be in the white Evoc bike kit. That might be him moving up here. Although Hodges is also in this group. Here goes Usborne again off the front. This guy just cannot get enough. He eats Watts for breakfast as Usborne attacks again at 2.5 laps to go.
I think he's comfortable. He's a former pro mountain biker, and so he's used to like kind of putting out an effort and kind of sustaining it, getting over the climbs, just kind of full throttle. Not a lot of patience, and Usborne definitely does not show a lot of patience. He likes to be aggressive, and he wants to be able to split this group up as he's on the attack again. Slowing down right now, 4.53 watts per kilogram. So perhaps waiting for somebody else to be able to come up with him and see if they can strike out again. But laps are starting to gradually go away, and so things really are starting to heat up now coming into the finish for this Gateway Cup race.
I love the way that Usborne is riding here. I mean, this is a style of riding that 9 times out of 10 you're going to get caught, you're going to blow up before you hit the finish, hit the line. But that 1 out of 10 where you get the win makes it all worth it. It makes it so special. So got to give Usborne credit for his riding style here. He's willing to take the gamble. He's willing to make the moves and willing to take the risk. It hasn't paid off yet with a stage win, but I would not be surprised if it does at some point before the end of the season here.
Just a minute ago, we saw Moen in here, Matt Moen, and keeping an eye on him as he won. They did the amateur Giro della Montagna. He raced it and he won it. And so Moen, 34 years old, is very familiar, right? If you already did the race, you're going to kind of know how to be able to set up that finish, and you're going to be more familiar with that downhill sprint. And so he has managed to be able to keep himself in this group, and he's still here fighting for his chance to win as he's already taken that amateur race.
Yeah, now this is the real art of racing right now. This point is where everyone is fighting to be not the first rider, but sitting in this group. It's a fight to be as efficient as you can. That's the real goal here, as you see them just kind of trying to sit exactly where they want to be. So Frankie coming up on 1 lap to go. I think they should be getting 1 on the counter next time they go through. One of the great feelings in bike racing, both as a spectator and as a rider. When you hit the line, you hear that bell, you hear the crowd roaring as you go through the line. We can't quite recreate that here on RGT, but we are going to do our best and bring in race director Mike Weiss to give us our official last lap bell. He's ready to go as we try and bring a little bit of realism to the virtual racing here. Obviously, we can't be in person together in person in St. Louis, but Going to bring Mike in to send us off on the final lap of racing here at 1 lap to go. So they can see the arch up ahead, looking down the road here on the final stretch of the course. And Frankie, it all comes down to this. Looks like they're all going to stay together. It looks like it's going to be a mad dash to the line here on the final lap of racing. So Mike, get that bell ready, and let's start ringing it for 1 lap to go as we send them off on the final lap of racing. Let's go, Mike. I love it. That is a quality bell. They do not mess around over at Big Shark Racing, Frankie.
Yeah, that's a real lap bell, not one of the rinky-dink bells. And so, no, Big Shark knows how to do it right, and they do a fantastic job with the 4 days of racing. But we're in the final lap right now, and so it is crunch time as these guys are trying to set up. Sure, they're in the front before they hit the hill. 6% grade, hitting them 30 times, and it's the last time. They got to be able to get over the top of this to keep themselves in contention for the sprint. And you can see everybody's fighting to be able to be in the front.
Melville sitting pretty on the outside. Here goes Will Harden moving up. Here come the Evoc bike riders, the insured riders now in the white jerseys, well grouped together. They got 3 there. Canyon Esports flying up the road. Here goes Charlie Velez attacking with 1K to go. An all-or-nothing move here from Velez with Canyon.
Wow, look at Velez and someone going right over the top of him. Canyon Esports on the attack. They decided to strike out. Huge watts per kilogram. Kaminsky, the rider from Poland, 10.8 watts per kilogram. Here comes the Belgian Swift national champion, Pleasure, trying to follow right on his wheels, but it's almost a 1-2-3 of Canyon Esports right now as the rest of the group comes in. And this is turn number 3. So if you can, you got to take a couple deep breaths, try to recover a teeny bit, and then you're going to go straight into the long downhill sprint to the finish.
You saw that drag up the hill, and now the speed's going to lift on the downhill section here. A little bit of separation. Again, this is where positioning is important, too, because the game does take into account where in the group you are. Velez back on the front as Alec Jones puts his nose in the wind again coming to the line. Frankie, it's going to be a field sprint at the Giro della Montagna.
Yeah, coming down to about 25 meters to go, and it's going to be coming down to a bike throw if they had it, and it looks like Moen taking the win. Talked about him winning the amateur Giro della Montagna, and he has just won the pro Giro della Montagna, racing for Inshort Pedal Power. What a ride from the 34-year-old.
Well, just like we talked about, a rider who we really didn't say much about during the race ends up finding his way to the front of the group when it counts on the last lap of the Giro della Montagna, as Insured, presented by Pedal Power, takes another win with another rider, this time with Moan on the top of the leaderboard. What a great show of teamwork there, Frankie. I mean, they were so patient on the Insured Pedal Power team. Didn't fall for those early Matt Usborne attacks, just sitting in, biding their time. And in the end, it pays off. Some tactical racing from Insured Pedal Power today.
Yeah, tactical racing, and it worked out really good. But also the experience. We talked about being comfortable with the platform, and really Matthew Moen, by racing the last weekend in the race, he knew the course, he knew how to handle the corners, and man, did it pay off for him. Unbelievable. But also congratulations to Bowen in second. Hardin did a great ride. The young 22-year-old putting in a good ride, racing for Draft Racing, rounding out that podium in third.
Riders just cooling down, relaxing, trying to catch their breath. We're going to try and grab a word with some of our winners here in just a second as the rest of our riders finishing up. The guys that got dropped out of the group, we'll let them roll in. Also getting ready for our women's race start coming up at 1:50 Eastern, so a little over 30 minutes away from right now as our women's starting to warm up and getting ready to roll. Frankie, the riders today that had trouble staying with the group, a lot of them finishing up the day early, realizing that once you get dropped out of the group here, you got a pretty tough time trying to finish the day. So looks like about 20 riders going to make it in this front group today.
Yeah, I started off with 70 riders registered, and gradually, it's normal. I mean, I would say, not that many riders get dropped in the real life Giro della Montagna. The group definitely does dwindle. Breakaways sometimes form and get caught. And it's exactly what happened in today's race. But coming down to really, and as you had mentioned, an elite group of riders, the same names we've seen race in and race out, coming to the front. I mean, once these guys are fit and they're strong, they're able to repeat the results kind of week in and week. That's exactly what we're seeing by the same riders. And so it's a strong 20-man group. And so, but we have had different winners, which has been exciting to see. It's not been the same rider winning over and over like we have seen on the women's side.
Joining the squad after winning the amateur series here. Matt, congratulations on the win. What a rise to the top here. Welcome to the Echelon Racing League.
Thank you.
So tell me about your experience with this course. I understand you race the amateur series, got a little bit of preview of the course. Did that help today?
Yeah, that helped a lot last weekend doing that race. A little smaller field. It was probably not as difficult. Today was a lot harder. But yeah, it helped a little bit. Pretty simple 4-corner crit. But yeah, there's a lot to get used to on the platform. I like it a lot.
Hey, what about racing with a squad? Has there been a learning curve to racing as a group with the Evoc bike, now insured Pedal Power Squad?
Oh man, those guys are great. It's really teamwork on and off the bike, just helping out with strategies, tips, and tricks. What to do, what not to do. You know, those guys seem to cover a lot of moves today. We were all kind of in the mix. So yeah, it really helps when you got your teammates there helping you on and off the bike.
It sounds like some progress being made on the platform as well. I understand pretty new to the RGT platform, but starting to figure it out.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's very engaging. There's lots to think about, like in a normal crit. Your positioning, where you're at in every corner, how you're going to come out of a corner. Yeah, it's pretty similar to a real life crit, I'd say.
So Matt, I assume you're back for racing tomorrow, the Benton Park Criterium. Little different, few more turns. Have you had a chance to preview that course?
Yeah, did that race last weekend as well. It'll be a lot of fun, about double the corners. So,
I mean, is it significantly different with the addition of the extra corners? Is it going to make a much different race than what we saw today?
I think so. It makes the race more challenging. It seems like there's probably a few more places for some hard attacks to get away. As we saw last week, if you go back and watch the replay, it definitely wasn't, a sprint to the line. So yeah, it's a little bit more dynamic. Definitely a harder race.
All right, looking forward to it. Matt, good luck tomorrow. We'll be keeping an eye out for Matt Moen, our winner today, and new rider on the insured Pedal Power team. Congrats, Matt.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Well, Frankie, there you go. Matt Moen on the top of the leaderboard doing 3.7 watts per kilo out there today. Ned Bowen ends up second with 4.2, and then Will Harden with 3.94. This is what we were talking about earlier with the efficiency of riding. You can see that it's not necessarily the rider that did the best watts per kilogram that ends up at the top of the leaderboard.
Yeah, smart riders sitting in, taking advantage of the draft, and Matt Moen with that experience from doing the amateur Giro dell'Italia, it worked out for him. And it's amazing, how it was a lot harder, but yet he didn't really look that flush in the face or that red in the face. It looked like he has quick recovery and obviously super fit in order to be able to take the win. Ned Bowen from Cardiac Athletes, a great ride also. And, obviously you can see from the times, really it comes down to timing. It was a very fast and quick sprint, and it just comes down to who kind of strikes out first and who has the legs to be able to put out, 10 watts per kilogram in those final 150 meters after an hour of racing.
All right, well, as we get ready for our pro women's race again coming up at 1:50 Eastern time this afternoon, we're going to take a short break. Before we do, taking a look at some of our favorite pictures over the years at Gateway Cup and remembering the times that we could be together and enjoy it. Can't wait to get back to it in real life in 2021. We'll be right back after this break.
The world is changing.
I'm looking to do things better.
To improve.
Just because it's always been that way doesn't mean it's right.
I embrace change.
I seek adventure and discovery.
I explore the unexplored.
To know the unknown.
Even in the toughest moments, we ride together.
Even in the moments when we're at our limits,
we support each other.
It's time to move up a level.
To push that little bit harder.
Changes we make now will make the future better for all.
The efforts we put in today
will pay dividends tomorrow.
We all have the power to up the game.
To build something better.
It's not time to play. It's time to get real.
It's time to be a game changer.
As an athlete, getting marginally better is one thing. Getting exponentially better puts you in a whole new ballgame. Biomoto uses a proprietary digital process to capture movement at 200 frames per second and 70 sensors per foot to measure ground-based forces, resulting in advanced motion analysis that's up to 10 times more accurate than orthotics. It's the data generated by this process that allows Biomoto to construct custom insoles that make athletes faster, stronger, and more stable, and result in an unprecedented 95% success rate.
Normatec recovery systems give you a high-tech compression massage for warm-up pre-workout and recovery post-workout.
The technology is very safe and is used by a broad range of athletic types and really any fitness enthusiast looking to get the most out of their workout.
The whole idea is that we're using air compression to help increase circulation in the body. We wanted to mimic physiology, the way the body moves fluids. We went ahead and took a lot of those principles and put it into a system that you can use on your different extremities and your hips as well.
Normatec has been an industry leader in pneumatic compression, providing improved mobility and profound healing for thousands of patients. We continually work with researchers to study and develop the effectiveness of our technology.
It's all about creating that community space where people have a conversation around recovery and start really challenging their beliefs in what is possible and what they've known and maybe what could be.
...2020 Echelon Racing League, brought to you by Project Echelon, educating, equipping, and empowering veterans through physical activity. Brought to you by Normatec. Move better and enhance your recovery with Hyper Ice. By Biomoto. Find the motor in you. And Nations, enhancing the reach of esports, including the Echelon Racing League. Beautiful look at downtown St. Louis at night, Frankie. One of the beautiful cities of the Midwest, and always a blast to visit the Gateway Cup every year and visit all the different neighborhoods around the city. One of the cool parts of this race, you really get a good flavor for St. Louis and a good flavor for all the neighborhoods around. So taking a look at our results from the Pro Men's race, just wrapping up, Frankie, what jumps out to you here? Taking a look at this. To me, it's Matt Moen at 3.7 watts per kilogram, one of the lowest watts per kilo on this list.
You're right. He was able to sit in and conserve and take advantage of that experience of learning how to ride the turns by racing the amateur Giro. So, yeah, very interesting on that. But Ned Bowen, great ride. Also, Will Harden, a young 22-year-old on draft racing. Alec Jones was very aggressive in the beginning. And you know what I'm seeing here a little bit also is like Usborne, super aggressive in the beginning part of the race. Yager, super aggressive in the beginning part of the race. They're not here in the final results. And so you got to be careful on how much you do to be able to have something at the end, as these races are becoming more and more sophisticated. And so you got to be able to play the game a little bit better. But congratulations to Matt Moen.
Once again, it is the smart riders that end up doing well here on RGT in the Echelon Racing League. So, Frankie, looking ahead to our women's race coming up next here, did we learn anything in the men's race that we're going to be watching for in the women's race?
I think a breakaway. I think, in the men's race, maybe a break didn't form, but there was a lot of opportunities where riders were trying to break, and we saw huge watts per kilogram in order to be able to keep it in one group. I think the women's group will break apart, and I think we'll have a breakaway. And we've seen, Jacqueline Godby, how she just likes to kind of keep that pace very consistent, very strong, never easing up. That's going to play a little bit of a part in how this race develops.
Yeah, women's field tends to be a lot more efficient in the riding as well. You don't see as much of a discrepancy in the power to the results as we saw in the men's field. So it should be really interesting to watch how they conquer the Giro della Montagna course. All right, we're going to take another short break here as our pro women get ready to roll their way onto the start line and getting into our virtual starting pen. We'll learn a little bit more about where we're racing here in St. Louis. And when we come back, more live racing with the pro women here at the Echelon Racing League.
All right, we are out here, Camino Escuela in Tucson, Arizona, for the first ever Camino Escuela Hill Climb Championships. Competitors here. Sean is going to be rocking the e-bike, the new Subito e-bike, weighing in at like 30 pounds, an additional, I don't know what that does, 200 watts. Heather, all natural. The course, I mapped it out earlier, it's about 1.3 kilometers. I think it gains about 30 to 40 meters, that's around 100 feet, and it's just short of a mile. Yo. Shooting at the demons, see your trees, making them more fun. Yeah. And if you wanna run away from the best you've done, yeah, I'll be there to save the day. I'll be your rising sun. Have you ever had a feeling that like there's no hope anymore, and then someone walks in your life and just light it up, or more like screw it up again? Well, I guess this is the main reason why I'm writing this song. Yeah. I heard you calling, I saw your sleepless face and I fell hard. I guess I'm falling for you, girl, I can reach the stars. Now. Oh, the nights we couldn't sleep, I was there carrying my gun, shooting at the demons, see your trees, making them more fun. Yeah. And if you wanna run away from the best you've done, rising sun.
All right, that just happened.
Yeah, I'm the champ. That was crazy. I mean, I hit my button and she had no chance.
I thought I was dropping you. And you were just messing
I
with
was
me.
stretching, getting ready for my effort. I did a little bit of this, one of these, and then I just hit. I just went.
We thought you were like getting dropped too.
This is how it feels. I feel so powerful right now.
My name is Dr. Alan Lim. I'm an exercise physiologist, and I've spent most of my career working with professional cyclists. For years, I've been getting riders to ride on static trainers that don't move. But now, with the Infinity technology by Ceres on the MP1 platform, you have fore-aft movement as well as side-to-side movement that ultimately greatly enhances comfort. Every single contact point can move in a more natural way, and over the long haul, what that means is you don't get beat up by your static trainer. With just that little bit of motion, you start to replicate what you feel in the outdoors, and that changes the entire experience. I think that one of the big reasons for that is that we're naturally tuned to want to move. Our vestibular system, when it's activated, ends up, creating, I think, a sense of harmony or joy that just isn't the same when you're not able to move. It's like the difference between a rocking chair versus a static chair. And a lot of it, I think, is about expectation, because when you get it on a bicycle, you expect it to move. And so when you get on the MP1 platform with the Infinity technology, you get that same level of movement. 6 degrees side to side, 9.5 inches fore and aft. And what that does is it creates an experience that is just so much more enjoyable, so much more fun than being on a static trainer. When you look at the design of the MP1 platform, it's not just designed for the H3 trainer by Ceres. It's also designed to be compatible with almost every new smart trainer currently on the market. So if you don't own the H3, but you have your own trainer at home, odds are this will be compatible with the MP1. Another unique feature of the Infinity technology on the Ceres MP1 platform is that it's best in class. You have 6 degrees of side-to-side motion and 9.5 inches of fore-aft motion. That's movement that specifically replicates what you feel outdoors, and there's no other competitor on the market that can simulate that type of movement. It's certainly not the kind of movement that you can get by just putting tennis balls under your trainer. Cycling isn't just about your legs and your lungs. It's also about being able to handle the bicycle, and that takes a lot of control in both your core as well as all of these small stabilizer muscles. On an indoor trainer that is static, you're just not getting any of that specificity. But with the Infinity technology built into the MP1 platform, you are able to use and have to use all of those stabilizers to control the bicycle. The net effect is that not only do you get a workout for your legs and your lungs, but you also get a workout for your core. The Infinity technology built into the MP1 platform creates the best-in-class movement for any trainer system. You've got 6 degrees of side-to-side movement, 9.5 inches of fore-aft movement, and the net result is way more comfort, way more fun, the ability to use your core or stabilize your muscles, and you've got a platform that is compatible with most trainers.
Racing continues here at the virtual Gateway Cup of the Echelon Racing League as we go back to St. Louis, Missouri for the first day of virtual racing. Just had an awesome pro men's race wrapping up, and now getting ready for the pro women's race as the Echelon Racing League brings the Giro della Montagna to RGT for the virtual Gateway Cup. Welcome back, everybody. Brad Soner here with Frankie Andreu as we get ready for our pro women's field here, Frankie. Much different racing in the women's racing here on RGT than we've seen with the men's race. The guys are wild out there. We see tons of attacks. We saw guys like Matt Usborne attacking late and relentlessly out of the group, but the women seem to be a little smarter with the racing here. I want to go back and talk about last week before we get into this week, because it was another story of patience paying off in week 3 of racing here at the Echelon Racing League. As again, we raced in the Bucks County Classic on Saturday, followed by the Armed Forces Cycling Classic on Sunday. It was a late race attack by Christy Tracy on day 1 that gets caught at 43 meters from the line, where Jackie Godby surges at the last minute to catch Christy Tracy and go right by her. Tracy ends up holding on to a 3rd place last week, but she did give it a go trying to attack. Tracy and Godby are both back this week, so they'll have a rematch as they had on day 2 last week, where we also saw Kristen Faulkner get into the mix for the Tibco SVB team, but Faulkner had a tough time after lapping the field. They end up with a technical where Faulkner lost connection to her Wi-Fi, actually lost power and wasn't able to connect to the game. That registered 0 watts and dropped Faulkner out of the group. So she will be back looking for revenge this week as Jackie Godby was able to solo away from Faulkner. She did hold on for 2nd place last week, though, but 33 seconds down on Jackie Godby for Team Tibco SVB. So Frankie, I think a lot of strong names in this group, but you really have to watch Jackie Godby because without a doubt, she has been the most dominant rider of the Echelon Racing League.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, in the last 4 races, I'd say 5 races, she's had 5 firsts. I mean, she's been winning nonstop. Racing for Triple X Racing Athletico, former pro triathlete since 2012. 5th at Esport Worlds. I mean, her resume goes on, and that, you know, in the virtual world. And so she has proven she's very consistent, and she's steady. She sits at like 4.5 watts per kilogram. Whereas Christy Tracy is a little bit more explosive. She likes jumping out and trying to take advantage of trying to be able to break away. She's had a 3rd at Bucks County, which was great. Racing for Team Infinite. She works in finance, loves doing gravel racing, and she's a good time trialist. So that good time trial is going against Jackie Godby's time triathlon experience. Really, these two have been playing off of each other. And so for Christy, Tracy's going to have her work cut out for her today also.
Good look at Jackie Godby on the line as we are just over 11 minutes away from race start. Frankie, just about every rider warming up and getting ready on the trainer as they prepare to conquer the course here. You see Jackie Godby getting a good front row starting position in her Team Triple X jersey, one of the Chicago-based squads. So kind of a hometown race for Jackie Godby here. Chicago, St. Louis, some of the great Midwest bastions of bike racing out there. Christy Tracy, the other one to watch. I think she will be a major factor out there today as she really has been at the top of the leaderboard for a majority of the racing that we've seen out there over the last few days. And Frankie, I think it's hard to argue against looking for Christy Tracy on the podium at the end of the day today.
Another rider that's been doing extremely well, Krista Doble-Hickok. Her consistency in doing all of the events and placing up there in the top 5s has set her comfortably in a 3rd place overall in the series, as Godby has a pretty big lead. And Godby's dominant performances, you know, she has a total of 188 points, where if you compare that to the men's side, the leader had 132 points. And of course, you know, when you're gathering 30-point races, you know, 5 times in a row, you're going to get a big lead and a big total. That's exactly what Jackie Godby has done.
All right, let's talk about where things stand coming into the race today after the weekend of racing at the Bucks County Classic and the Armed Forces Cycling Classic. Just 2 weeks ago, riders had a little bit of a break over the holiday for Christmas and New Year's, but back to racing here. Chris Doble-Hickok is the one hunting Jackie Godby in the overall, as Godby widened her lead last week to 188 points to Doble-Hickok's 125. Elena O'Mara, sitting in third place at 117 points, was a late race scratch today, citing illness. She will be a DNS on the line today, so O'Mara probably going to slip down in the GC. Good opportunity for riders like Eleanor Wiseman and Stephanie Sidlick to try to move up on the points. So you see Megan Easler down there in 6th place for the Project Echelon racing team. Christy Tracy sitting in 7th place overall because she missed some days of racing. That majorly affected her GC standings, with Maddie Ward sitting in 8th place, Morgan Chafin in 9th, and Jennifer Real rounding out the top 10 for Team Infinite. So, Frankie, really goes to show you how important the consistency is in the league, because when you take a look at the team standings as well, you can really see which teams have sent consistent squads to race. Squads like the MED Foundation bringing almost a full roster every opportunity that they have to race here at the Echelon Racing League.
Yeah, the strong teams, MED Foundation, Velocity Vixen, Team Infinite. One of them not listed in this because they haven't done that many of the races is TIPCO, Team TIPCO SPV Bank. Kristen Faulkner's here by herself. Last weekend, she had 3 or 4 teammates to be able to help her out, but Team TIPCO Silicon Valley Bank with Faulkner has come back to try to, as you mentioned, Brad, make up for that technical mistake that was not her fault. That kind of cost her the victory, although she got a valuable amount of points and a great 2nd place. But for many of these riders, there's the top spot on the podium. That's the one that counts for them.
All right, let's talk about where they're racing out there today in our course profile presented by VeloViewer. Frankie, one of the most straightforward courses that we're going to see all season, but it's definitely a tough one. The hill is no joke on this course. We saw it in the men's race. It had a huge effect on the last couple laps of racing. I'm thinking that's going to be the same story out there today for the women.
If somebody wants to strike out, they do it on the hill, and if you're going to have to repeat that 30 times, eventually you're going to break. It's going to wear on you. So out of the start-finish line, you're heading towards turn number 1, and generally it's fast. It's fast and flat. It's on the backstretch where the hill climbs up to about 6% grade. So that makes it very tough. And going through turns 3 and 4, it's a short amount of distance. It's flat, and then a downhill sprint to the finish. And so the riders are going to have plenty of time to be able to discover the course, but they're also going to discover it's extremely tough racing.
Now, we talked earlier about the importance of being efficient on the platform. Take a look at this. The top 5 power performers from last week's race at the Armed Forces Cycling Classic. Jackie Godby put out the most power and ended up winning the race. Chris Doble-Hickok almost exactly matched her power. They both averaged 4.64 watts per kilogram, but Doble-Hickok ends up 4th place on the day. Stephanie Sidlick doing 4.52 watts per kilogram, a little lower average than Godby and Hickok, but ends up 8th place. And then you see Lauren Stevens at 4.22 watts per kilogram, ends up 3rd. So seems like the women's field a little more efficient out there, Frankie, than we saw with the men's race. It's a little more consistent between the top wattage performers and the riders that we see at the top of the leaderboard.
Yeah, very close. The watch between a lot of the riders is very close. And I think part of that is because it's a little bit more, as you mentioned, consistent, but more steady. We don't see as many attacks in 2 or 3 groups. We see a little bit more steady. The time trialists and the triathlons and the former triathlons and the pro mountain bikers, they're used to more of a steady state effort. And that's what we're seeing happening in the women's races, that they get on the front and they go hard, and then everybody needs to kind of follow and stay in that draft. And so I think it kind of changes the dynamic of the race a little bit. And as these riders try to figure out how they're going to beat Jacqueline Godby, how are they going to get Doble-Hickok out of 2nd place overall, they're going to have to change their race strategy and maybe try to be able to mix this up a little bit to make a few more surges and to not make it as such a consistent pace.
All right, I want to bring back in Mike Weiss, our in-real-life race director of the Gateway Cup here. Mike, after watching the virtual racing out there, were you surprised by anything? How well did it match up to the real-life racing for you?
It actually, like the one characteristic of the race that is, if you've done it, is turn 3 is pretty much the finish line. You have to be in place at turn 3 with a downhill sprint. Turn 4 is sort of just you can shuffle a few spots. I thought I saw that. I mean, it seemed like everybody was really tactical on the last lap up the hill, and they fill the road, and I think the RGT platform does create that kind of realism for the rider. So I thought it was it's a nice development.
Pretty amazing how important those corners are in the racing. Like you said, the race to turn 3, especially out of that downhill. The course tomorrow in Benton Park, much different than the one that we're racing today. Is the racing usually different in real life? I mean, is it a different type of winner in Benton Park than you usually have at the Giro della Montagna?
Yeah, you can't, unlike a 4-corner crit, the Benton Park race is not for the faint of heart. You have to, the start is on a hill, and you could kind of be in trouble very quickly in that race. Position's really important for once you finish the one full lap, you kind of you understand it. But I did a test event that RGT did on Benton Park, and I was one of the riders Moan, who just won the race. He's made the same comment. There's a couple spots on that race where you can launch an attack, and it might work.
Yeah, Mike, I think you're one of the few guys who still lines up for your race. You get a chance to get out there every year. Is that right? I know I saw some pictures of you in a kit on the line. Do you get out there and do your own event?
Yeah, I've sort of been naturally deselected into the Masters race. I used to fancy myself pack fodder in the Pro 1, and now, and even then, that's not really the case anymore. Those guys are so fast. So, but yeah, Benton Park is by far, it's self-loathing. I mean, I've created a race that I can't finish.
Well, now I got to know why Frankie laughed when I asked if you were getting in the race. What's so funny over there, Frankie?
Because he does. He works like mad. I mean, he's putting up fencing at 5 in the morning. He's organizing everything, putting out fires. And then when the Masters race comes around, he runs to the back of the trailer, gets dressed, hops out there without any warm-up, and hangs in the middle of the race. And it's super fast. The Masters racing at Gateway is unbelievable. It's like a national championship for 4 days in a row. And Mike's right in there just kind of doing it like it's no big deal. So I'm laughing because it's so impressive.
I'm going to do my best Mike Weiss impression. I got my Gateway jersey, and I'm ready to race. So I'm going to kit up for this one, and we'll get ready to go rolling here. I'm going to go ahead and join the guest team here for week 3 of racing. Mike, is that all right? Can I have a guest spot on one of your squads?
Oh my God, please! We need more handsome men.
The last thing I need is to get dominated by.
For you, Brad, is Spencer Segerbrich, who was on our team, just is going to be racing tomorrow for Canyon Esports.
There you go. There you go. You should be my agent. We can work out all these team transfers and team changes out there. Yeah. Guys, we are just a couple minutes away from racing. So, Mike, I'm going to ask you to go get a cold beverage and watch this race with your feet up for the first time in your life. You can start the last race of the day with nothing to worry about. So I hope you can enjoy this one and maybe get a chance to relax and watch your bike race as a spectator and not have to work on race day here.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right, Frankie, let's get into it as we take a look at our field of riders in their Zoom room, getting ready for that all-important ramp-up to the start here as everyone starts to zero their power out, and then it's about trying to max out your power when you hit the line as we go inside 1 minute to race start. I better zip my jersey up here. Oh, it's tight. It's a tight fit, Frankie.
You'll be ready for the races soon enough, Brad. Soon enough. So it's good you got a jersey, though. But you know what? If you do one of these RGT indoor races, you don't need the jersey, so it doesn't even have to fit.
All right, riders getting the 30-second warning. As you see, everyone's starting to hydrate, getting their last checks in here. Not much you can do at this point. Preparation should have already been done, so you'll see everybody start to wind it up all at the same time here as they all kind of start to launch at once, getting ready to roll. See riders out of the saddle. The countdown begins, and we're going racing at the virtual Gateway Cup, part of the Echelon Racing League. Giro della Montagna underway for the pro women.
Very interesting. Megan Eisler, now she gets out of the saddle. Megan Eisler, I was wondering, she didn't get out of the saddle. Perhaps there's a little bit of a delay with the coverage. So But Godby did not get out of the saddle. She just kind of wound it up in the saddle, and some of these riders definitely remaining out of the saddle, trying to put out big watts. So again, the sprint is so fast and so hard, and you got to do a sprint, a full sprint in the beginning of the race to make sure you're in the front group. Then you got to worry about recovering about 2 laps later, and that's what makes the virtual racing so hard.
Yeah, I don't think there's any other discipline, maybe aside from cyclocross, where the whole shot is so important, where the first 10 minutes of competition matters so much, because it's pretty easy to find yourself out of the race after the first 10 minutes of racing. That's why you see so many riders fighting for the front here. How about Eleanor Wiseman making her way to the front? She has been a silent killer in these races, incredibly aggressive, super strong, and obviously not afraid to be little aggressive early on, so keep an eye out for Wiseman out there today.
Yeah, Wiseman, a strong rider, racing for the Amy D Foundation. In 2019, Amy Wiseman did over 53 races. So if you want to talk about an experienced rider, Wiseman falls right into that category. The 31-year-old racing for that Amy D Foundation. As Godby, again, 6 watts per kilogram, so a little bit harder than her normal comfort zone of 4.3 and 4.5, but it's early on in the race. So she's kind of really trying to straighten things out right now. I think she was excited about how she was able to lap the field last weekend. Perhaps she has the same thoughts in her mind.
Yeah, remember, Godby is a triathlete by trade, so she likes the long, sustained efforts. This is Stephanie Sidlick going with her, who's going up to join the group. And the rest of the field going to swarm her as well. So Godby, I think, just testing the legs here, just trying new things out. Frankie, one thing about Jackie Godby, she's not afraid to mix up the strategy. She's not afraid to try different things and different ways to win. She talked about trying to learn the RGT platform. She'll try to win out of a breakaway like we saw with the Armed Forces Cycling Classic where she lapped the field, but she'll also try to win out of the group like we saw at the Bucks County Classic where she let Christy Tracy attack at the final at 1K to go and then came through for basically a field sprint to take the win. So that's another really dangerous thing about Jackie Godby. She can win in so many different ways. She can win out of a break, she can win out of a sprint, and she can win solo off the front.
Yeah, she's a smart rider. I mean, she's going to figure out how to be able to take advantage of how the race is playing out and use her strengths to the best of her ability. And talk about a smart rider. I mean, she went to Northwestern University, has a master's and a PhD from Northwestern University. And so the intelligence, as we all know, with bike racing, there is strategy involved. You have to think. It's not just about going flat out. We've seen the watts per kilogram that Brad has been pointing out, showing that, hey, the strongest isn't always the winner. It's the smartest, the one who can save up and keep rested. And so that plays a lot into the strategy of how these races play out.
To the Canyon Esports team roster here with a new name on that roster. Stephanie Sidlick moving to the Canyon Esports team from the Velocity Vixen squad starting on New Year's. So she changes her jersey and changes her squad. Sidlick has been a consistent top 5 rider in the group and looks like she got picked up by the Canyon Esports team after those performances here in the Echelon Racing League. So that'll be another rider to watch out for. Again, she'll be wearing the pink and purple jerseys of the Canyon Esports squad. Jackie Godby back on the front as we take a look at the Evoc bike, now insured, presented by Pedal Power Team after they make a switch as well on New Year's. Mallory McCrosty going to be one to watch in this group. You see her there sitting in 9th place, just off to the right-hand side with the orange helmet and white jersey. She has been another consistent rider in the group, so we'll be watching for her and the insured, presented by Pedal Power Squad. And then we'll move to Team Draft. We saw these guys in the red kit in the pro men's race just a little bit earlier with riders like Blackburn moving away off the front. Pretty strong women's team as well. You see they bring 5 riders to the roster here today. So Velocity Vixen, the final team here with Morgan Chafin, the one to watch on that rider. This is the former team of Stephanie Sidlick, who has now moved to the Canyon Esports team. So I'm going to guess Bonacisi and Chafin will take over the leadership role for that Velocity Vixen squad moving forward here at the Echelon Racing League. few riders solo here as well, Frankie. Not everybody starting with a team. Jackie Godby, her Triple X Racing Atletico squad, she is riding solo today, along with Cristobal Hickok for Rally Pro Cycling. She does not have any teammates out there, so she'll be all alone, but they've proven they don't really need it. Maybe not much advantage when you have the legs and power like that, because the strategy is pretty straightforward for these solo riders, Frankie. You either got to get away from the group, get a move going early on and try and stay away, or you just sit in and hope you can outsprint the group.
Yeah, and Cristobal Hickok has done a great job in learning this virtual platform, the rider racing for Rally on the road. And she's a lightweight rider. She's a climber, really. And so the third year with Rally, comes from a running background, so she also has that big aerobic engine. She actually started cycling by teaching spin classes or doing spin classes. And so obviously she's come, that's a long time ago, and she's come a long way. So third overall in the series, Double Hickok is one that's going to be there at the end here. Couple riders attacking. Cecile Lejeune also on the front. She comes off a third at Moguignon, racing for Insured Pedal Power. She's out of the Washington, D.C. area. 6 watts per kilogram. Sorry, Lejeune is coming out of Canyon Esports, coming from France, as Stidlick is right behind, who just switched over to that Canyon Esports team. So 3 teammates all helping each other out, working as Wiseman now comes up to the front. The German deciding to be able to show herself. And we talk about how experienced she is, as Wiseman now is coming up to the front after getting a 4th at the Gila Monster.
Group still together, moving through. Frankie, I got some good news for you. I think
you got the jersey on?
Finally got my team jersey on. I am just above a medium in Castelli, in case you're wondering.
The holidays have been good to you, Brad.
It was a good couple weeks of eating and drinking, that's for sure. With staying at home, not doing much, so what else can you do but get some good food and good drinks out there?
These virtual riders have not been able to have that luxury. With this is our 5th race in the Echelon Sports League series, and so they've had to be focused now for about a month, leading into some of these races having 3 races in a weekend, some having 2 races in a weekend. For example, the Gateway Cup with the Giro della Montagna today, and then tomorrow with the more technical, I think it's about 8 corners, Benton Park race that will take place on Sunday.
A solid series of racing here at the Echelon Racing League. We've been talking a lot about the amateur riders joining up. Again, the top 10 riders from the amateur series get to race the pro series at the ERL as well. You see our next events coming up with Redlands Classic, followed by Joe Martin Stage Race, and then the Tour of America's Dairyland. And we're also going to be adding a new race into the schedule, as we're going to add a weekend of racing with the Indy Crit, another solid American criterium race in Indianapolis, Indiana. So they're going to get their own weekend on the ERL, and we'll add another weekend of racing for our pro riders. If you want to register for the amateur series, you can do that at echelonracingleague.com. Just click on races. It is free to race, and the RGT platform is free to download and ride on. Start preparing now for the Redlands Bicycle Classic coming up January 16th, where they're going to race the legendary Sunset Loop Road Race course at Redlands. It's going to be a lot of fun. Your chance to ride that legendary course, which I'm sure you've heard about. Registration is open now at echelonracingleague.com. Just click on races, and then you'll see the amateur races tab. Frankie, it's been cool seeing the amateur riders coming into the pro series, the riders that have the best results the week before in the amateur series, like our winner today, get the nod to go race in the pro ranks. A lot of these riders don't realize how good they are, how strong they are, and it's really exciting for when these riders have a chance to get outside and race in real life, because I think we're discovering a lot of untapped potential and untapped talent in these virtual racers.
Yeah, in a way, the platforms have really become its own development series, in a way, to be able to find this new young talent. In the women's race, we have riders as young as 20, and we have riders as old as like 43 years old. Same on the men's side, and so it really is covering the whole gauntlet of age groups and experience. And so These platforms, I think, are going to be very interesting to see the kind of talent that comes out of this. But you were just talking about the Redlands Sunset Loop. I'm thinking that's going to be an extremely hard event, a hard race to do virtually because of the hills on that one. That's a tough one live. It's going to be even tougher virtually because of the amount of climbing that they do at the Sunset Loop of Redlands. So I'm excited to be able to see how that one plays out.
It's a course that we've watched all the pros do, and they make it look so easy. If you've been to the races, it's one you certainly know well. But the chance to ride it on the trainer is super cool. It's one of those iconic American road race courses that anyone who is a pro bike racer in the United States over the last 15, 20 years has raced Redlands. They know the Sunset Loop, and RGT giving us a chance to race it on the trainer as well. We'd love to be there in person, but circumstances requiring us to race on the platform this year for 2020, and hoping to be back in person in 2021 at all of our events here. Jackie Godby back on the front again in her XXX Racing Atletico Leaders jersey. John Cooper cheering her on in our Facebook Live chat. Be sure to drop us a comment on Facebook or YouTube, wherever you're watching. Let us know who you're cheering for, and we'll be sure to get those cheers out to the riders, because this is also going out to our Zoom room. We can communicate with all the riders, try and listen in on what they're saying and how they're looking out there. So get those messages in and cheer on your favorite rider. Let us know where you're watching from, who you're cheering for, and who you think takes the win today at the Virtual Gateway Cup. Morgan Chafin, I think, getting a shout out here from Mallory Weisbeck for the Velocity Vixen team. Things looking pretty calm out there here, Frankie. Right around 4 watts per kilogram, the average for most of these riders. As Tom Strenlau welcoming all of our riders to the hill next year in person for the Gateway Cup. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate the hospitality. That's it's one of the reasons why everyone loves coming to Gateway Cup, because people like Tom inviting everyone to come enjoy the hill in person. Look at this, already starting to shred, Frankie. It looks like shredded mozzarella on the hill right now.
Yeah, it looks about 10 riders coming down, and Tom Strenlau, definitely an integral part of Gateway. He always comes up on the stage and talks with us and helps with the kids' races. He does a lot for the race, and definitely with kind of the liaison with the event and the community with everyone that's there. And so look forward to seeing Tom also at the end of this year. I almost said next year, forgetting that we're into 2021. And on that note, I wish everybody a happy new year, and hopefully everybody had a good one, and 2021 goes better than 2020, which I'm assuming everybody probably didn't have a good 2020. There's probably a few exceptions out there, but I'm hoping for a better 2020.
Pretty low bar for 2021. I'm confident we can do better this year.
I'm confident we can do better also. So we'll see. Godby's definitely trying to be able to one-up for 2020 results as he continues down the front. What I have noticed is Canyon Esports continues to really press the pace right next to Godby, kind of controlling the front with Lejeune and Kirsten Pohl. Kirsten Pohl, the 33-year-old, the German rider on Canyon Esports, and Lejeune, 22 years old, the young rider from France, have been really riding on the front. You can notice them in that purple and kind of red jerseys. As you can see, Godby just consistent. You can see that breathing. You see her stomach going in and out. She rides like that all day long. 4.4, 4.5 watts per kilogram. She just turned it over. I mean, you talk about, riders not being a machine. She is almost like a machine.
Yeah, it's amazing the way that she rides, just consistently riding on the front with really no regard for her personal effort. She's just more than happy to ride that steady tempo there. Looks like Kristen Faulkner starting to make her way up to the front as well. Now remember, Faulkner and Godby lapped the field together at the virtual Armed Forces Cycling Classic. So if Faulkner and Godby can link up again today, that is going to be a dangerous duo. Although I'm not seeing the same aggression today that we saw during the Armed Forces race, where Godby and Faulkner got away pretty quickly after the start. I'm just not seeing that that riding style from Godby or Faulkner. Here's Christy Tracy getting to the front here. This is another rider that we're going to talk a lot about today, as she has been omnipresent on the leaderboard here at the Echelon Racing League. I think today, Frankie, just making sure that she's not left behind with that what seems to be an inevitable Faulkner-Godby move, because if things go the way that they did at the Armed Forces Cycling Classic, you got to think that they're going to at least try to get some separation, and Christy Tracy wants to make sure that she's there to cover that move.
Yeah, one thing that really showed me from that race where they were able to break away was Faulkner had to bridge across that gap, and that was an impressive move. I mean, 10 watts per kilogram, 11 watts per kilogram for a pretty good sustained effort, maybe 30 to 45 seconds for her to bridge across. That is kind of what shocked me, is how much power she had. And so that's what makes her, I think, extremely dangerous, more so than that they lapped the field, but that she has that kind of explosive power. And once she got there, she was able to recover and ride with Godby pretty comfortably. So even though she's here by herself from the typical way, I think Faulkner is going to be definitely setting her sights on trying to cross that finish line first. I'm not sure how comfortable she will be letting it come down to a field sprint. So 15 minutes into racing, still a lot of racing to go. You might see some attacking coming later on, but it's Christy Tracy in that time trial position going off the front.
Yeah, Tracy getting low and locking in as she starts to lift the pace here. Godby responds. There goes Christopher Hickok shooting through the gap as well. As boy, that Tracy move really lit the fuse in this group. Look at the jumps going on the front as Godby just slowly responds. Now, this is another reason that Jackie Godby is so good at this game. Look how slowly she gets back into the group, Frankie. It's not a quick jump up into the group. She's really able to modulate that power and just slowly apply the pressure until she gets back in, so she's not wasting any wattage. I think that's a big part of this game that gets lost, is that riders will go up to 500 watts to get back in, but they don't need to, because the game can only process so many watts when you're drafting or caught in a group. And so Godby is really good at just knowing just the right amount of power to put in to get her where she wants to be in the game.
Yeah, she kind of figured out this the game platform and being very consistent in her power output. Where it was just a minute ago coming out of the turn, you could see Double Hickok, you could see some of the other riders definitely going ahead. At 6 watts per kilogram, trying to stay in contact. In other words, put out the power out of the turn to stay in contact. As we see, I think Lejeune and Double Hickok is on the front right now. So small group, started with about 40 riders. We're down to maybe 10 or 15, I think.
Yeah, not many. You can see the distance off to the right-hand side of their names. You see on the leaderboard on the left side of the screen, it shows their placing and then the rider name and then their current watts per kilogram, and then the number to the right of that shows the distance to the next rider in front or behind them. So it gives you an idea of where they are in the group and what the gap is back to the next group. Now in the game, it's measured in meters instead of in time, but we can do a little bit of a conversion. It seems to be a little more accurate and more helpful to the riders to measure in meters rather than to measure in time like we would in real life. So focusing on Jackie Godby right here, sitting in second position. You can see it moves her around in the group, and great look at the field here, Frankie. Great look at who's remaining in the group, and I think that's Laura Matson-Coe at the back at number 11. I think that's going to be the last rider in this field. So let's call it 11 riders in this group as the early selection has been made.
Yeah, and Matson-Coe, strong rider. She was part of that UCI Esports team, and so you got to keep an eye on her. She was 7th at the Esport World Championships, coming out of Seattle, racing for the brand new Insured Pedal Group.
Yeah, part of the Esports Worlds team you talked about, along with Chris Double Hickok. You see still wears her Stars and Stripes jersey for Team USA. She was joined by Kristen Faulkner and Jackie Godby on that roster, and some pretty impressive results as we had a couple riders inside the top 10 overall, Frankie, as we took a 4th and 5th with Lauren Stevens and Jackie Godby.
But it shows the quality of this field, too. I mean, you got riders that were at the Esport World Championships in 4th or in 5th or in 7th, and yet they're, I don't want to say hanging on the back of this group, but, they're not exactly off the front riding. And so very high quality field here with some extremely strong riders. And so these women really demonstrating, putting out big watts per kilogram consistently. So we're only 20 minutes into the race, 36 kilometers of racing still to go. So that's a long ways to go. Again, every time they go on this part of the race course, they're hitting the uphill, which is about a 5-6% grade. You can see that in the upper right-hand corner, where you're going to see that slope starting to gradually increase from 1.7, 1.8, 2, 3, up to about 5, as Double Hillcock starts to be able to make her way back up to the front. Oh, somebody in the orange just kind of either blew the legs up or had a technical problem. Eastler struggling a little bit coming up to the
Frankie, take a look at this. This is Cecile Lejeune of the Canyon Esports team. Not sure if you can see, but that is steam coming off of her. I think she's riding outside and heating up so quickly that her entire body is steaming off the top right now. Goes to show you how tough the racing is out there.
Yeah, it looks like she's in a basement or in a garage, and you're right, cold weather, and she's got the steam coming off, natural cooling, a young 22-year-old, and so she's reacting to this move from Christy Tracy. And one thing we saw from Christy Tracy is she rides in that time trial position. Going back here, Megan Eastler, I think, had it. No, the young 23-year-old, she had a great ride when she did third at the heater racing for Project Echelon. She's out of Oregon. In the category 2018, she won the category 3 of the Benton Park race, so she's raced Gateway 4.
Yeah, once she lost contact with the group, she was completely cracked. So Eastler in a tough spot here at 13th. She's going to limp home for the last 35 kilometers of racing as the front group continues to shrink up here. As we'll say, -1 with Megan Eastler getting dropped out of the group. It looks like another rider falling off the back here.
I'm counting 9 riders in this group. It's the one rider just off the back. That'll be, I think, number 10. Not sure exactly who that is, but Matt and Co doing a fantastic Tracy here. So Cameron, who's on the attack right now. That's Claire Cameron, Canadian rider, 39 years old, races for Infinite. Cameron was actually part of the 2004 Olympics for the Paralympics. So she was a pilot on the tandem for the Paracycling Olympics.
Great shot of the lead group and a good look behind them as they go into the 1K banner that they will do about, 20-ish more times. We'll figure out laps to go here in just a bit, but still a lot of racing to go with 34K remaining. Tracy putting in a little effort.
Yeah, look at the watt, 7 watts per kilogram. Matt and Co responding to it. Nice move, 7.8, 7.9. So, those top 6 riders are all in the red right now. So big move. This is stringing it out, like putting them in the gutter. You got the crosswinds and you put into the attack. That's exactly what these riders are experiencing right now. Getting lower and lower on their bikes, trying to be able to put out that power to make sure they stay in contact with Jaffrin again in trouble. It's the second time we've seen her in trouble. The Canadian rider trying to stay with the group, and it's pretty much coming down to now or never.
Yeah, this is a bad time to find yourself off the back as well because they are starting to press the pace up at the front. You saw that attack by Christy Tracy earlier that sort of ignited this last couple minutes of racing. But yeah, watching Chafin try to tack back onto this one, this is one of the hardest things that you can do in virtual racing is trying to catch on to a group up the road. Frankie, RGT is certainly not doing you any favors in the drafting department. I mean, once you lose contact, just like real life, it is near impossible to get back on in the group. I know we've been saying that a lot, but it's one of the differences between Zwift and RGT. RGT, the riders report, much more realistic in the physics of drafting, riding in a group, and what you can do in the group. So we tend to see a lot more breakaways on RGT because the groups are not as fast together. The group dynamic is much more realistic, and we see a lot more riders getting dropped out of the group because it's a lot harder to stay in the group on RGT than on Zwift.
Yeah, very hard to be able to stay in it. And she's the rider for Velocity Vixen off the back, right? She started teaching as a spin class rider, and you raced on the outside on the road, but she had a bad crash with the Joe Martin stage racing. And so then she decided, not road racing, switched over to triathlon, kind of doing the tries. Then has continued continue to discover the virtual world, which she enjoys very much. It's just today perhaps not her day, as she's struggling to be able to keep in contact with the leaders. We talk about many of the riders that are part of the Esports World Championship team. They're in this group. Here we take a look at Christy Tracy, who's instead of being in the time trial position, Brad, she's kind of sitting more upright. I don't know if that means she's not going as hard, or it's like just a different kind of pace or change of position for her.
Yeah, I was just going to say, one of the rare times that we've seen Christy Tracy riding on the tops of her bars instead of down in the time trial bars. She's usually very low on the bike, like this position that she just moves into here. Now, obviously, this isn't because of aerodynamics, Frankie. It's more about biomechanics. It's about being as comfortable and efficient as you can on the trainer. A lot of riders prefer to get down low, sort of take that body weight off of their saddle, try and put it up on their handlebars and forearms a little more to take some weight and power off.
There, now she goes back to that comfortable position. This is what she's used to with her, triathlon background. And so Christy on the front, sit a little bit. Again, we talked about, Brad, you mentioned about putting in calories, drinking. So, sitting up a little bit to be able to make sure you get some sugars into your body. We've seen Jacqueline Godby definitely speak specifically about eating during the race. And so that's something that's very important. The fuel part and the hydration part during all of these races, because they are so intense.
Lejeune taking a look on the front as Godby takes over again.
See Jackie Godby again, 4.3 watts per kilogram. Max & Co comes up to the front. Godby just keeps it consistent. They kind of following, I don't want to say following her lead, but just keeping up with her pace. Because the pace is so high at 40 kilometers per hour, it's very consistent and fast, and so very difficult for anybody to be able to attack. Nobody's slowing down, so it's not giving an opportunity for anybody to break away.
Yeah, I mean, that's really all you can do is just try to hang with Jackie Godby on a day like this. The ball is really in her court. She's in the driver's seat. And it seems like the other riders are more than happy to let her drive the bus here early on. I haven't seen a ton of riders really challenging Jackie Godby for the sort of alpha female position at the front of this group. They're more than happy to let Godby get up there and set the tempo, because I think a lot of these riders have learned, look, we can't beat Godby at her own game, so we're not even going to try. We're not going to try and go with her. We're not going to try and challenge her and lift the pace. I think your best chance of beating Jackie Godby on a day like today is in a sprint. You just have to hope that she makes a mistake, she messes up the timing, or has trouble with the wattage. I think that's your best opportunity to beat Godby. You're not going to do it from a long-range attack. You're not going to do it from a late race attack. So you got to try and keep this together and hope that Godby has trouble in a sprint.
There's a little bit of a hit list with Godby, Wiseman, a lot of strong riders in that front group, as we see Cecile Lejeune focused. And you talk about, Brad, you mentioned that laser look, and that's, next to her, I would not want to get that look.
That's the look of a determined rider, that's for sure. Max & Co. moving off the front. Grossman and Godby up there as well. I think now that this group is established, we're going to see a little lull in the action here, Frankie. 30K to go. Good chance to kind of sit back, try and recover a little bit. Now's your time to eat. Now's your time to drink. Although, if you don't like your chances in this group, you maybe try to attack right now. They always say the best time to go is not when you feel good, it's when everyone else feels bad. And I'd say that's right about now, as they made the selection, and now they're just waiting for that next attack to come at the group. Don't forget, you can check out the official Echelon Racing League gear at wearenations.com. Each team in the Echelon Racing League has hats, t-shirts, and hoodies in the store now, and you can support your favorite squad with a portion of all purchases going back to the teams and riders. So pick up some gear from wearenations.com and support your favorite Echelon Racing League rider or team. I'm looking at the list of names on the left-hand side of the screen here, Frankie, looking for names that haven't been at the front all day, names that haven't stuck their nose in the wind. I'm looking at Esther Beauville, second place right now, the Canadian rider. I don't think has hit the front of this group the entire day, and that's probably the right way to do it here. So I'll be keeping an eye on Beauville, sitting fourth place right now. Seems like she's trying to ride as smart as she can today.
That's a good call. Beauville, 45-year-old out of Canada, racing for Team Infinite. She has a hockey background, used to play hockey, and switched over to cycling. Obviously, it's amazing how many people from injuries, either from running or different stuff, have switched over to cycling of injuries they sustained. And cycling being a non-impact sport has really found them a home. Plus, it's a sport you can do pretty much entire life. It's not like you don't really grow out of it. I mean, my father's like about 82 years old, and he still goes out and rides. And so for a lot of riders, they seem to discover the sport a little bit later in life, and that's very common in women's, especially in women's professional racing.
Yeah, the old saying, you don't stop riding because you get old because you stop riding, right? As long as you just keep moving. Pretty amazing what a little bit of time each day on the bike can do. Watching Canyon Esports with Pole taking a look here on the front. Canyon Esports outfitting their teams with some pretty cool virtual backdrops for the squad. I like this, Frankie. A little bit of team branding going into the Zoom cameras here for the Canyon Esports team.
Looking very comfortable, consistent. 33-year-old out of Germany. Kind of on wheels right now. Here too, right? I mean, there's nine riders, 8 riders in this group. Instead of watching out for 30, instead of fighting for position in 30, a little bit more comfortable. Like Cameron sitting in the back right there can just kind of be a little bit more comfortable with it. She can follow the wheels, doesn't have to worry about fighting such a big group. So that aspect is pretty simple. If you were riding, in real life, if you were riding the Giro della Montagna, if you came down to a group of 10, it's going to be a little bit easier to fight for position to stay on the wheels, but you still have the effort. On 31 minutes of racing, that means that we have probably at least another 30 minutes of racing. So I would say maybe just under about halfway through, 27 kilometers still to go as we see Godby. Consistent 0.5 watts per kilogram. I've talked about it, how she just kind of keeps going at one pace and everybody else just kind of follows. Bold is kind of surging as she's coming out of the corner. And this small elite group right now just has to kind of be patient, kind of get over the climb, and then try to kind of regroup on how they're going to be able to win this. We saw some flyers before in some of the other races and just caught at the line. That was going to be interesting to see. Is if somebody can take a flyer and actually not get caught and make it stick. That is what can catch everybody by surprise, and that's what gives everybody hope that they can be able to win this bike race.
Yeah, you got to think eventually somebody's going to get it right. Somebody will figure out how to time that last race flyer and beat Jackie Godby. Remember, Christy Tracy was so close. I mean, she made it inside 50 meters to the line before getting swarmed by the group. So that just goes to show you that they are starting to figure it out, but no one has quite cracked the code on the solo late break yet. But I do think it's coming. I think we're going to see it before the end of the season here, before we get to the Tour of America's Dairyland to wrap up the Echelon Racing League this year. I would not be surprised if we saw at least one rider getting away for a solo win on one of these days. Jackie Godby opening up a little bit of space as they rolled underneath the start-finish arch at 26.6K to go, but probably just some natural reshuffling in the group as, again, they're really not going too hard here. Things are pretty chill in this group right now. Now, chill for them. It would be tough for any other cyclist to even stay in this group, but looking at the watts per kilogram and the power zone that these riders in, seeing a lot of green, a lot of blue, just a few greens and yellows popping up every once in a while, so it's pretty calm and relatively relaxed out there. Now, they are coming up to a lapped group right here, so that group in front are riders that are about to be a lap down. That's probably like 18th through 25th in there, so they're going to move through that group pretty quickly as they'll go a lap up on that group of 15-20. Just like real life racing, you got to keep everyone on the course. We try to give everyone the longest race that we can. Don't want to ruin anyone's day or end their day early because they have a bad start to the race. So they do leave the lap riders out on course so they can finish their ride and finish their workout. Lejeune back at the front here, the French rider for the Canadian Esports team, going into the red here. Again, you see the power zone at the underneath her name, the name tag, and then also to the left of her name on the leaderboard. Lejeune sensing that things were maybe just a little bit too easy in a group, so she starts to step on the tempo, and look what that's going to do. This group is really starting to race now as Laura Matson-Coe also makes an appearance on the front. A lot more riders going into the orange and red zones.
Yeah, the orange and red zones, I mean, those are kind of the ones that are going up there towards that VO2 max and the pain threshold, I guess you could say. 25 kilometers remaining as Lauren Matson-Coe decides to tuck in and be able to kind of stay rested as Christy Tracy comes back up to the front, 6.6 watts per kilogram, and no surprise there, Godby right on her wheel.
Good ride for Cameron if she can go with this one. If they get some separation, Cameron is in a good spot. You see Matson-Coe also realizes what's happening, and she closes this one down. Frankie, just like in real life, a lot of these riders have big targets on their back. A rider like Jackie Godby, a rider like Christy Tracy, even Laura Matson-Coe, or the Tibco rider, someone like that was on the Esports Worlds team. If you try and go away and you try and get space, those moves are covered almost immediately. So it's really tough for these big stars, the riders that already have results in virtual racing, to try to get away, because just like in real life racing, they're marked riders, and that makes it a whole lot tougher to execute your plan.
Yeah, as marked riders, it is more difficult. And obviously, in the race, after you get through 5 or 6 laps, or you dwindle down to a group of 10, you see who's strong. You know whose wheel you're following. You know who's pushing the pace. And so that puts a target on your back as well. But for Godby, I mean, you know, the last 5 races, she's won them all. Definitely she has the biggest target, but a lot of these other riders here too, they're very familiar with each other. They've been racing against each other week in and week out, and so they kind of know what's going on and what the strengths and weaknesses a lot of these riders. But the group has definitely dwindled down. I mean, Pole, Lejeune, Tracy, Matson-Coe, Godby, Cameron, Weissman is still in this group also, I believe. So very strong group trying to fight it out for the final 23K.
A couple questions in our chat about the rest of the race behind this front group. We'll try and go a little farther back in the race, so it is starting to mix up a little bit. This is 9th place on the course with Morgan Chafin of the Velocity Vixen team riding solo, and then you can see the distance back to Krista Doble-Hickok, who's sitting in 10th place right now, a few hundred meters behind. So Doble-Hickok solo in 10th, and then it's going to be Faulkner behind her, but not far back. Faulkner only about 50 meters. There you see a nice look from Faulkner up to Doble-Hickok. So that is 9th, 10th, and 11th with Chafin, Doble-Hickok, and Faulkner. And then McGregor going to be sitting in 12th, but a good distance behind them, a few hundred meters back, as she'll be at the front of this group, which includes riders like Megan Easler and Mallory McCrosty in this group. So this is 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, and 17th. You see that on the left-hand side of your screen. So we'll try and get some more names in there as they become available. But all these riders, well, a couple of these riders sitting in the front group and a couple of these riders trying to chase, as we see our top 2 with Krista Doble-Hickok and Kristen Faulkner. And then Christy Tracy on the bottom left of this picture with Cecilia Lejeune in the bottom right. So these riders spread out all over the group here, Frankie. Some surprising names missing from that front group. I think there's probably a list of like maybe 15 names that we consider favorites in this field. But some of those riders like Krista Doble-Hickok missing from the group, along with Kristen Faulkner. That leads me to believe that they might have had some sort of issue out there today, because these are riders that would not normally get dropped in a race like this. So I'm wondering if Faulkner is maybe still suffering from those technicals.
It could be some technical problems. Another big name, or I consider a big name that's not here, but because she was sick, as you mentioned that she was sick, was Alana O'Mara, who definitely would be, I think, one of the riders that's a factor in this race. But yeah, so it's pretty interesting on how, a lot of riders, sometimes they have good days, sometimes they have bad days.
Godby continuing to push on the front. Cannot wait to watch her in some of these real-life races. I know she's been getting a lot of invites to the real-life race that she's been winning, so it's going to be really interesting to see her on races like the Redlands Bicycle Classic. We talked about the Sunset Loop course there. Big question is, does it translate into effective real-life riding? We're going to find out, hopefully, in the next year or so, as some of these virtual stars get a chance to test their virtual legs against the real-life legs as we start to get some of our in-person events back in person in 2021 and into 2022, more than likely. Cameron appearing at the front, the Canadian mixing it up with Matson Coe, Godby, and Tracy. Still watching at the back. I don't think anyone is really in danger of popping out of this group, Frankie. Have you seen anyone in this front group showing any signs of weakness? They all look pretty comfortable to me.
No, right now I have not seen anybody showing signs of weakness. I think it's keeping it steady. I think they're all comfortable right now. They're just trying to get some laps underneath them and get some kilometers done before they start kind of attacking the heck out of each other at the finish line. And so, status quo for now. I was going to say that when they show Cécile Lejeune, the young French rider with the steam coming off her back, it's a pretty awesome photo to be able to kind of see that. It's almost like fire is coming off her back because she's riding so hard in that cold temperature wherever she might be. So pretty awesome to be able to see kind of that kind of energy output coming from the rider.
Yeah, and apparently the ambient temperature hasn't changed at all because she's been steaming since the start of the race. Been 41 minutes since they left the line, and apparently still pretty chilly wherever she is.
That'd be a cool
I think
photo.
the light behind her helps too. She's got a big light right over her shoulder, which I think is kind of backlighting that a little bit.
Yeah, so young rider, Canyon Esports rider, out of the saddle right now, keeping up with the group, looking very comfortable in the group too, I have to say. The young French rider with this kind of elite group of 8 or 9 that is there. Some of these other riders we've seen repeatedly in some of the other races. Not so much with Cécile Lejeune. I mean, she rode Tour of the Gila, but then she didn't do Bucks County, or I don't think she did Bucks County or Clarendon Cup. And so coming back now for the Gateway Cup, and so Godby is now on the front, going back up to her 4 watts per kilogram.
So there is your front group with Godby, Tracy, Poole, Lejeune, Beauville, Wiseman, Matson Coe, and Cameron. Your 8 riders in here. And looking like it's probably going to stay that way for the next little bit.
Yeah, last time after the win at Clarendon Cup with Jackie Godby, you were speaking to her about kind of what her next races were going to be. And she pretty much mentioned she was taking some time off. I mean, from that race all through the holidays to the New Year's, and her next race was going to be this one, which was the Gateway Cup. And I was kind of surprised to hear that. I thought she might have some other events lined up kind of in between, maybe to keep herself fresh, to keep herself kind of in form. But I think Godby decided to take a little bit of a break during the holidays and then be able to come back specifically for the Echelon Racing League.
It's one of the unique parts of virtual racing, too. It's so easy to over-race because you can race pretty much every day if you want to. At this point, after coming up on a year of the pandemic, there's pretty much a race that you can get into either on Zwift or RGT every day. And so the riders are having to make the decision, which ones do I race, which ones do I sit out? Because there is an element of fatigue of trying to race too much. If you try and do these competitive level races every day, you're going to burn out. And so the riders are sort of having to restructure their training and restructure how they peak for certain events, because it's a lot different than trying to follow a calendar where you can only race so many races. There's the limit of travel, there's the budget of trying to get there, and just the calendar in general. It's just not that many races out there anymore. But with virtual racing, you could do 2-3 races a day.
Yeah, that's a good point with the cost and traveling of doing the real life races. And Brad, you mentioned some new teams setting up virtual racing teams. How much cheaper would that be to set up a virtual racing team to be able to race on the Zwift or the RGT platform and have a budget and have your sponsors compared to a real racing team that has to travel to Silver City, Mexico, then travel to Redlands, then travel to Washington, D.C., travel to Georgia. Each race would be $10,000 or $12,000 that you're having to travel to. Whereas if you have a virtual squad, maybe you got to buy some turbo trainers, but then you're pretty much set up and you can race you can race a lot, multiple times a day if you wanted to, but at least every day, and you can get a ton of exposure. And so this is, I think, part of the reason the virtual league in RGT is taking off and becoming so popular.
And a pretty impressive reach and value for the riders that do take part in the organized races like the Echelon Racing League. I think a lot of teams and riders are also finding that the exposure they get is pretty similar to the exposure that they were getting in real life, and that certainly brings up some questions of when it comes time to budget where those funds go for 2021 and 2022. It's pretty hard to argue with the value of virtual racing. As we take a look at Laura Matson Coe and Christy Tracy on camera here with Lee Group and Chase Group. You see the different styles of riding we were talking about earlier, Frankie. Christy Tracy down low, Laura Matson Coe up high, as they have their personal preference on the trainer.
Yeah, very different. And some might think that, getting in that aerodynamic position, it kind of pinches that hip area, not able to generate as much power. Whereas sitting up, you're able to generate a little bit more power as Lauren Matson Coe out of the saddle to make sure that she's able to stay with the group. For Matson Coe, we talked about, 7th at the eSport World Championships, very strong rider, racing for Inshort Metal, coming out of Seattle, Washington.
Love the overhead view here. Great look at the dynamics of the group and a good look at the gaps as well when this group starts to break up, which it will before the end of the race today. These riders will not finish this close together, that's for sure. Someone's going to step on the gas. 17.6K to go, though, is really tough. You're right in that gray zone where someone like Jackie Godby could probably take a solo flyer and make it, but it would be a gamble. So it looks like she's going to sit in and wait just a little bit. A lot of these riders did do the amateur race a couple weeks ago. It seems like a lot of riders are really valuing the chance to preview the courses, Frankie. The pro riders are eligible to race in the Category 1 field for the amateur races. Now, that doesn't affect the amateur riders getting into the pro races. The pro riders basically don't count towards that competition, so the top 10 still get invites to come race the Pro Echelon Racing League. But doing the amateur races and having a chance to preview the course is a huge advantage when it comes to virtual racing.
Yeah, a lot of riders taking advantage of that. At least we saw that in the men's race. And so there were riders that went out and decided to do Giro della Montagna last week, also did Benton Park, to be able to get familiar with the course and kind of get a sense, because, riding the course compared to racing the course, it's different. So it's much better if you can kind of experience it in a race-style format. Even if it is less riders or maybe not as strong a riders, you kind of get an idea of how to handle the turns, what the climb is going to be like. And that's obviously super important with the Giro della Montagna. I mean, they call the race the hill for a reason, because that hill on the backstretch usually rips everybody's legs apart.
Godby trying to keep her legs intact and looking pretty good at it. Just relaxing even on the front, I would say, in the green power zone here. Again, not afraid to put her nose in the wind. There's some riders that just have that, Frankie. Some riders that just have that ability to say, I'll take the lead, I'll sit on the front. They're more comfortable there. They're more comfortable being in control rather than having to respond to the efforts of the other riders around them. So a lot of riders just prefer to ride on the front. I think Jackie Godby is a lot like that. You can kind of look at it like your power or the way that you want to drive your car, right? If you're trying to baby your car, you don't want a lot of acceleration and deceleration. The best thing you can do to extend the life of your car is just keep it nice and steady, right? You want to just the highway miles versus city miles, as they say. That's what Jackie Godby is trying to do here. She's trying to put highway miles on her legs because she knows the stopping and starting of city miles will wear her out much quicker. And so Godby likes to get to the front and just put on cruise control, set tempo so that she can get in her zone, ride the way that she likes to, and doesn't have to deal with that up and down of trying to respond to somebody else being in charge.
Right, and what makes it difficult is that her tempo, her highway mileage speed is at the speed limit. And so not many people can kind of go over that without getting themselves in trouble. They end up redlining themselves if they decide to attack past that speed limit. And so a lot of them just have to sit back and kind of wait and follow. And that's kind of what's happening right now during the middle part of this race.
Getting a nice look at 3 different views of our front group. I wish we could do this in real life. It's so easy to add the cameras in the virtual world, but it's so difficult to do it in real life. That's another fun part of virtual racing. We certainly get to see more of the racing than we would in real life as this group's sitting together, and it's been a pretty good show to watch with these riders up at the front today, as well as the selection made pretty quickly, and now we just sit in and wait. Frankie, good time right now to thank all of our fans out there watching. We're getting a lot of comments in the social media chat, and thank all of our new viewers as well. Got a lot of people tuning in from the Gateway Cup here. Some first-time viewers of virtual racing. I want to bring Mike Weiss back in. Mike, it sounds like you're going to have a lot more visitors in 2021 or 2022 when we get back to this one in real life. You guys do plan on being back in 2021? I mean, is the goal right now to try and hold a Gateway Cup this year?
Yeah, I mean, we feel we have a pretty safe date. We're always Labor Day weekend, so I mean, our hope is, the North American calendar will pick up at some point. I think Gateway Cup is going to be going up against the big pro race in Baltimore, Maryland. But I think in terms of who we attract, it's every state, every tier. It's not going to be a UCI pro event. But we think there's pent up demand to get out there and and kind of get back to normal. We're couldn't be more excited for a better year, like you said earlier.
I know you have been working with your fellow promoters to sort of find the way back, the way to safely get back to real life racing. We're seeing some events starting to be allowed to exist, some more events starting to happen out there. But I think one thing's for sure, we're not going to be back until we're sure that it's safe and we're sure that we can do everything, obviously within the rules and regulations in front of us, but most importantly, keeping everyone safe because, well, no bike race is worth whatever comes along with when we all get together. No bike race is worth getting COVID, that's for sure.
Yeah, we were the last domino to fall since we come late in the season, and we were, we had teams emailing us all year long saying they wanted to come race, and finally we're just like, for public welfare and for our staff, we're gonna be patient, and I think, even if we still have to do a lot of things to mitigate risk, we're gonna run the event with everybody's health in mind, and hopefully we'll see some. I want to see Godby come out and race again. I'm excited to see her do this in real life.
Yeah, I'm going to take Godby on tour this year. I'm trying to put together like a Jackie Godby touring van so I could just take her around to all the PRT events, because I would absolutely love to see what this kind of power can do in real life. You're absolutely right. It's been really interesting to watch these new riders coming to race here at the Gateway Cup. And Mike, I understand we're going to give an entry to the winners today and tomorrow. If you win the virtual Gateway Cup, you get to come race real life Gateway Cup for free.
Yeah, we're gonna hook it up. We want to connect the dots between what you guys are doing with the Echelon Racing League and seeing some of these athletes come visit if they've never been, and if they have been, welcome back.
That's what it's about, getting people out to experience the real-life Gateway Cup, and we can't wait until we can do it. Mike, we're going to get back to racing because we saw a couple attacks going away here, so I think I hear your toasted ravioli is almost done. You might want to go check on that. It sounds like it might be burning a little bit. We saw a little attack there, Frankie, from Laura Matson Co. taking a little look off the front, but has been swallowed back up by the group. You think maybe just testing the legs out there, seeing if anybody responded to that move?
I think trying to see if anybody's willing to be able to go with her on that move, but also testing her legs a little bit. You can get kind of comfortable sitting, a little bit at, 3 watts per kilogram, maybe riding at about, 250, 300. And so you got to be able to, it's going to get hard later on. So you got to kind of stay warmed up. You don't want to be able to really cool down. And so she's, testing, I guess, a little bit to see who's going to do what or who wants to go with her as Godby continues to kind of set her regular tempo. But Brad, you had mentioned about, I think it'd be a great idea to have the Sonar RGT caravan tour, where you took out the winner of like Godby and maybe like Ben Thomas, if he ends up winning this overall series, to the Criterium series across the U.S. and kind of explore and see how they do.
Yeah, take some of these crazy kids on the road, although I think there would be a pretty significant learning curve for a lot of these riders. A lot of riders in this race have never raced on the bike in real life. There are a handful of riders in this series that are pretty much virtual-only riders, so obviously a lot to learn for them when they get out and start riding IRL in real life, but it would certainly be interesting to watch, that's for sure. It would be one of the great shows of American bike racing if we got some of these virtual athletes out and just dropped them in a Criterium.
I remember, I think it was last year, you had Rider X that was kind of racing for the first time at certain events. This would definitely fall into that category. And as you mentioned, last year I found out there's people that only do things indoors. They only ride indoors, they only run indoors, they only swim indoors, they'll prepare for an entire triathlon never going outside, and that blew my mind. I never understood that. And so it's nice to be able to connect the dots between the virtual world and the real world, because I think it's important to do both.
Wait until you find out about this thing called Peloton, where you can now ride in a group. It actually came from people that were driving their cars to ride their bikes inside, and then they thought, I can ride my bike inside at home. So we got to get some Peloton riders on this one as well, though I don't know if it's the same appeal of real-life road racing as it is with Peloton. Taking a look on the front as they go into the 1K banner. It's like Grossman sitting up on the front with Godby in her leader's jersey. Again, just tapping out that tempo. You see it hardly ever changes. It's amazing how consistent Godby is with her wattage. Her ability to maintain that wattage at just the right number is really amazing. That's something that's really hard to do, Frankie, isn't it? In real life or on the virtual platform. It's tough to just say ride at 300 watts or just sit at a certain number, because you really have to be able to understand how the power responds to your effort and how just the tiniest little bit of effort can change that number pretty drastically. It's not easy to hold wattage consistently.
It takes some experience, but that's where her triathlon background comes into play, because her triathlon background, obviously, if you're going out, you're holding watts, you're trying to keep a consistent.
A few good looks at the different groups out there. We'll try and get one more inventory of the riders at the back before we hit the finish here. We'll take a look back through the group here one more time before they hit the final few laps of racing. But I don't think much has changed. I think those solo riders still sitting in 11th, 12th, and 13th, and then a pretty big group back in 14th, 15th, and 16th. So that's Morgan Chafin right there, who you see as the solo rider back in 9th place. She's going to be the first rider behind that lead group of 8. So that's 9th, and then we should see Kristen Faulkner back behind her in 10th, as it looks like Faulkner is now joined up with Krista Doble-Hickok and Anna Rogers. So we'll go ahead and call this 10, 11, and 12 with Doble-Hickok, Faulkner, and Rogers. And Rogers actually going to be a lapped rider. You see her in 16th place right there. So Mallory McCrosty will actually be the next rider, who is somewhere in this group mixed in with Megan Easler, and 13th as she moves up to the front. So this is sort of the second group on the road. There's that small group of 2 with Faulkner and Doble-Hickok, and then we go back to that group. Stephanie Sidlick in here at 15. So that means a lot of riders in that group that we just showed you are lapped riders. A lot of riders have gone a lap up or gotten lapped twice and are now sitting in that group. So Sidlick in 15th, and then Rogers in 16th. So Rogers is a great example of a rider who's a lap down. She's a lap below Chris Doble-Hickok and Kristen Faulkner, who we saw going by. So a lot of riders starting to get caught up in the traffic here as we go back up to the front again with this group of 8 riders that have made the front selection. Looking like these riders are going to go to the line together with 9 kilometers of racing to go in the women's Giro della Montagna.
So kind of surprised at some of the riders, like Godby actually almost sitting back a little bit, almost kind of following, not really pushing the pace as much as she was before, still sitting right at about 4.3 watts per kilogram. And as I say that, she comes back up to the front. Not sure, a little bit taking a little bit of a breather, but as we get into the final 10 kilometers, Canyon Esports has a couple riders in that group, and I think there might be 3 riders from Insured Pedal in this group. And so, how much are having teammates in here going to make a difference? I'm not sure, but it definitely is not going to hurt as as that Insured Pedal group, those 3 riders in the green right there, the Canyon Esports in the purple and blue on the side.
Yeah, I think the big advantage for having a teammate in here is the ability to send them early, right? Send someone to attack in the last 5 kilometers and try and draw out some of the other riders, force them to chase. So if you're Ensure, presented by Pedal Power, absolutely try to send someone away and try to force Jackie Godby to chase, because your best case scenario is that Godby falls for the bait, burns herself out, runs out of energy before she gets to the line, and then you can take her in a sprint or a field sprint after that group comes back. So I wouldn't be surprised to see those teams try to launch a late race attack. Now that's easier said than done, because Jackie Godby is going to start to lift the tempo here very soon to make it near impossible for riders to try to get away. She wants as many people redlining as she can get, so that it's a lot harder for them to have the headroom to be able to escape out of the group. So once you see those attacks start to go, expect to see Jackie Godby lift the overall tempo of this group, because she doesn't want anyone to get away late, Frankie.
I agree. I think she's comfortable with her power to be able to time trial, or power even in the sprint. She puts it in the right gear. Extremely strong. And so, one of these riders is definitely going to have to sacrifice themselves, and I would think it'd be the rider from Insured Pedal Power. And by sacrifice themselves, I mean 2 laps out, 3 laps out, really race it like it's the last lap and go as hard as you can and go flat out and see if you can get Godby to kind of redline herself, which would benefit everybody else if you're trying to beat Godby. Now on Godby's end, she's just going to keep it steady, and we keep talking about ways to beat her because she seems unbeatable. I'm not rooting against Jacqueline Godby. I don't want anybody to think that. Super impressive, and it's fun watching her race, but sometimes you got to think a little bit differently and trying to figure out a way to be able to beat a rider that is as strong as her, and that's what kind of gets where you have to get creative.
I will say, I think Jackie Godby would be the first to say that she's more than happy for you to cheer for other riders in this group, because she's been really enjoying the process of exploring how to race on RGT and the different ways that these races could play out. So I think she would appreciate if some riders tried some new attacks and new strategies out there on the road. Jackie Godby would be the first to sort of cheer those riders on and show some support for the new method of racing if they can try to find some way to try to beat her out there. Look at the riders spread out across the road, taking up almost the entire lane here on the left side.
One rider doing a good ride out of Team Infinite, Long Island, New York, is Christina Grossman. She's managed to be able to remain in these final 8 riders, and she's just kind of patrolling the front and staying in that top 3. So she's doing a fantastic ride so far.
Yeah, riding smart in the group. It's amazing how much you can get done by just kind of staying out of the way. Just let your power do the talking, sit in the group, use the draft to your advantage. And Grossman should have a lot left in the tank when we get down to the final couple laps of racing here, which are going to be coming up very shortly at 6.4 miles to go. Each lap just under 6.3 kilometers to go, sorry. Each lap just under 1.5K. And 1.67 kilometers to be exact on the circuit today. Frankie, I went to public school, but I think that's going to mean 4 laps to go here.
Pretty close. So,
moving my abacus around to try to figure this out.
So I think we got two riders racing in Europe. Cécile Lejeune racing in France and Pole racing in Germany. Weissman is German, but I think she lives in the U.S. racing for the Amy D Foundation. She raced, talked about how her experience with Eleanor Weissman doing over 53 races in 2019. And so she's obviously ridden a ton outside. Big attacks going on right now as Lejeune's the first to strike out. 6.3, 6.4. She was at 7 watts per kilogram. Kind of interesting. I think this is at the top of the course. This was going in between turns 3 and 4 as they get ready to head down. But immediately a reaction from the main teletype as Tracy got are the first two to latch onto her wheel.
Well, this is what you have to do. This is how you have to ride. If you're going to beat Jackie Godby and Christy Tracy, you have to take the fight to them. And Cécile Lejeune has been more than happy to do that today for the Canyon Esports team, launching that attack there as she does get swallowed up here. But that has changed the dynamic of the race here, Frankie. The first rider to attack, and now that's going to unleash 5 kilometers of fury here as our women's race goes down to 3 laps to go next time through.
Yeah, I would think this would kind of let the fire up on everybody. They're seeing that, hey, it's now to attack. We're going to see what happened. But also, now to put Godby on full alert, round off the sirens in her head and start trying to ramp it up, as you had mentioned, Brad, trying to hold right off the kilogram. They're on the slope right now. Looks like 4/10 going up as they get ready to go through. I think this is going to be the top of the course, 3 and 4. So we saw Lejeune being the first rider to attack. Who will be the next?
Or will anybody be able to attack? Will there be a next rider, or does the tempo just get lifted so high that nobody can get away? Doesn't look like that's quite the case right now. They're not quite into the red zone yet. Most riders still in green and blue, which means it's relatively calm out there, at least in terms of the power numbers, although I'm sure there's a lot going through their minds right now, like, is Cécile Lejeune going to attack again? As we see her make an appearance up on the right side of the group, but then just let off a little bit as they go into the 1K to go banner. Now, again, let's take a look at this course, Frankie, because this is a good preview of the run into the finish. If this comes down to a bunch gallop from that last kilometer in, it's pretty fast, and I think only 2 corners between 1K to go in the line. Here goes Godby. Again, just inching away off the front, looking for her advantage, as now Pole is going to go for the Canyon Esports team. So this is what we were talking about earlier, the strength in numbers. Use the team to your advantage, and Canyon Esports is sending Kirsten Pole off the front right now. That's going to be the first move of the day for Pole, as she will be the proverbial rabbit here for the field. Well, they brought it back, but certainly lifted the tempo. Tracy, meanwhile, with a little gap as she gets back in. And this will take us down to 2 laps to go as they go into the start-finish arch one more time. Love this look on the front. You can see not a whole lot of room for these riders to maneuver around the group, but a ton of daylight behind them as, again, if you're not in this group, your race is pretty much over. We're going to see a significant gap from 8th place back to 9th as Kirsten Pole goes again for Canyon Esports, setting tempo on the front. Going under 3 kilometers to go to the line here. You see a lot more reshuffling starting to happen here as they I don't want to say fight for position, but the wattage is certainly less consistent now in the last 3 kilometers than we saw earlier. We're seeing a lot more of these gaps forming here and there. The group is just starting to fall apart a little bit more in the final 3K of racing. As we go back to Pole, putting in her effort for the Canyon Esports team, still doing her job here. I think this is a setup for someone else on the squad. I think Pole is trying to draw the other riders out here. Some really smart racing from Canyon Esports.
Well, Canyon Esports with the numbers are being able to take advantage of that, and then we have the other riders try to follow up on that, which are the inshore pedal power riders.
Because Cecilia Lejeune on the front again. It's amazing how Canyon Esports has been able to dominate this group. They have really been the aggressors in the last 5 kilometers of racing. You see a lot of those purple and blue jerseys up on the front. So they definitely had a plan, and it does not involve letting Jackie Godby do what she wants out there. Canyon Esports is really trying to take the fight to Jackie Godby's front door, and I hear some knocking over in Chicago. Watching the overall wattages starting to rise here a little bit as well, as they go up towards 3 and 4 watts per kilogram averages. And there's our 1 lap to go bell from race director Mike Weiss, sending him off for the final loop of the Giro della Montagna. Grossman taking a look at the front here as well. Really no point in hiding anymore. If you got the watts left in the legs, now's the time to use them. Watch more and more riders going into the red zone as Tracy covers the move of Jackie Godby, lifting the tempo on the front. This is going to take us down to 1K to go as they go under the yellow banner. Presented by Argon 18. Last 1,000 meters of racing here. Again, a couple more corners before they make it, so timing's still important. See the riders just waiting, biding their time. And it's like one of the Team Infinite riders going to go with Cameron. She gets swallowed up. Here goes Godby surging. Remember, just 2 more turns after this, so this will be the penultimate left-hander here. Godby still sitting on the front. Nice smooth ride through that penultimate corner for Godby. Did a nice job of maintaining her momentum. Now into the last corner. Godby still sitting on the front, but a lot of riders on her wheel. This is still anyone's race. It might finally be the day where we see Godby dethroned as Laura Matson-Coe makes an attack here at 800 meters. Godby surging late, though. Tracy in trouble. Here goes Godby. She's got the gap, and I think she's going to do it again. Meet the new boss. Same as the old boss, as Jackie Godby takes another stage at the Echelon Racing League, winning day 1 of the virtual Gateway Cup. Jackie Godby is your women's Giro della Montagna winner. It looks like Laura Matson-Coe going to end up in second, and Kirsten Pohl will take third place on the day as we welcome the rest of our riders rolling in. This, again, is going to be Morgan Chafin rolling in for ninth place, who should be solo. That group in front of her are lapped riders that will still have another lap to go around, and that's going to be, I think, 11th, 12th, and 13th place. So we'll keep an eye on them and try and get our top 20 riders in here as we try to welcome the rest of our field, as many riders as we can coming into the group here. Nice ride by Chafin. It's not easy to do what she did today, riding solo all by herself out there in that ninth, I think, position slot. It's pretty tough to be able to maintain that for the entirety of a day of racing out there, but Morgan Chafin doing a great job for the Velocity Vixen team. So big congratulations to her on a consistent effort out there today.
Extremely strong, but what a ride, and it shows how hard and fast this race is. Such a small group. The other riders are going in.
So Chafin, in her last couple kilometers of racing here, she sees 1.8K to go on her screen, averaging a nice 40 kilometers per hour. This will be Faulkner and Doble Hickok. Again, Rogers is a lapped rider, but has been sitting in with this group. As it's a pretty good group to learn from, good group to sit in with a couple riders from the Esports Worlds team. There's Krista Doble Hickok finishing up her ride. And see if we can put Kristen Faulkner in here as well. There we go. Pair of riders finishing up. Pair of very strong riders. Surprising to see that these riders fell out of that front group today. Certainly two names I think that I would have expected to be in the top 10 with that front group, but maybe just getting caught off guard today, or maybe falling victim to the holiday break in between. A little too much time off the bike, as I know can be easy to do.
Like,
So Faulkner and Doble Hickok are going to be heading out on their last lap, so it's going to be about 1.5 kilometers before they finish. That means that Chafin should be finishing up behind pretty soon here, as I think she is just behind this group on the virtual course, and should see her hit the line, and then we'll round out our top 10. Take a look at results and try and grab a word with our winner, Jackie Godby. All right, so here's Morgan Chafin coming to the line. Again, this will be good for 9th place on the day. All right, so there's Chafin in for 9th. Rest of the group with Doble Hickok will head out on their last lap of racing and finish up. So we should have the top 10 here in just a couple minutes. Let's use this opportunity to take a short break as we wrap up our pro women's race here at the virtual Giro della Montagna. We'll grab a word with our race winner when we come back. In the meantime, enjoying some very cool pictures from local photographer Dan Singer. Had some great captures from the past years of the Gateway Cup. Can't wait till we get more of these in 2021.
world is changing.
I'm looking to do things better.
To improve.
Just because it's always been that way doesn't mean it's right.
I embrace change.
I seek adventure and discovery.
I explore and explore.
To know the unknown.
Even in the toughest moments, we ride together.
Even in the moments when we're at our limits.
We support each other.
It's time to move up a level.
And push that little bit harder.
Changes we make now will make the future better for all.
The efforts we put in today
Will pay dividends tomorrow.
We all have the power to up the game.
To build something better.
It's not time to play. It's time to get real.
It's time to be a game changer.
As an athlete, getting marginally better is one thing. Getting exponentially better puts you in a whole new ballgame. Biomoto uses a proprietary digital process to capture movement at 200 frames per second and 70 sensors per foot to measure ground-based forces, resulting in advanced motion analysis that's up to 10 times more accurate than orthotics. It's the data generated by this process that allows Biomoto to construct custom insoles that make athletes faster, stronger, and more stable, and result in an unprecedented 95% success rate.
Normatec recovery systems give you a high-tech compression massage for warm-up pre-workout and recovery post-workout.
The technology is very safe and is used by a broad range of athletic types and really any fitness enthusiast looking to get the most out of their workout.
The whole idea is that we're using air compression to help increase circulation in the body. We wanted to mimic physiology, the way the body moves fluids. We went ahead and took a lot of those principles and put it into a system that you can use on your different extremities and your hips as well.
Normatec has been an industry leader in pneumatic compression, providing improved mobility and profound healing for thousands of patients. We continually work with researchers to study and develop the effectiveness of our technology.
It's all about creating that community space where people have a conversation around recovery and start really challenging their beliefs in what is possible and what they've known and maybe what could be.
The 2020-21 Echelon Racing League is brought to you by Project Echelon, educating, equipping, and empowering veterans through physical activity. Presented by Hyper Ice. Move better and enhance your recovery with Hyper Ice. By Biomoto. Find the motor in you. And by Nations, enhancing the reach of esports, including the Echelon Racing League. All right, well, as we wrap up our pro women's race, let's move over to our virtual interview and see if we can grab a word with our race winner, Jackie Godby. Jackie, congratulations on the win. Can you hear us? All right, so first off, you are a very smart woman, and I saw after your ride your immediate recovery when you sat down. Can you share with us what your post-race recovery was today?
Yes, that is the post-race recovery. I have earned it, and it makes me a very happy woman.
Hey, I noticed you are the eating and drinking is a big part, I think, of your success and your prep. You always seem to have food and water available on the riding, keeping those calories coming in, and you're not afraid to eat real food or fun food that you enjoy eating. That's it seems like that's kind of part of your success.
Yeah, I mean, you know, doing triathlons in the past, you know, you really just know that you're going to run out. And so coming to these bike races, coming in with that mentality, I know 45 minutes in, I'm not going to want to eat something that doesn't taste good. And if, you know, I want chocolate, gosh darn, in a 30-mile race where I'm sprinting alongside some of the best women in the world, I get chocolate. And I think, you know, in addition to the fueling strategy, like you said, it also just keeps it fun and happy. Like, who's not going to race for chocolate? I don't think you're going to find any of these racers that don't look forward to something like that at the end.
Got to find the motivation where you can get it. Race out there today, pretty straightforward, 4-corner criterium. We've seen courses like this before in the Echelon Racing League, and things seem to play out pretty similar to what we've seen before. That selection being made, a group of 10 riders, and then the sprint to the line. Were you hoping to get some separation today, or are you starting to get more comfortable finishing in a bunch sprint like this?
I'm definitely learning how to finish in a bunch sprint a lot better. You know, every time it's a little bit different sprint. On the last criterion sprints, we've been sprinting into a little bit of an uphill. So we've had to start the sprint later. Whereas today, you know, we had that beginning uphill, maybe, you know, 3/4 of a kilometer out. We started building up the power. And then finishing with that big downhill, I think really changed the dynamics. It changed the drafting. It changed who was in front. It changed whether watts or watts per kilo were going to be dominant. So, you know, I started my sprint today a lot further out and didn't hit the sharp, pointy end of it until, you know, a little closer to the line.
How big was the effect of those hills? Was it bigger than the corners? I mean, is elevation gain a bigger factor in the game than the corners, or do you think the corners have more impact on a criterium course like this?
I think it really depends on the day. You know, with today's course, the corners really were not as big as they were 2 weeks ago. You know, they were much more gentle. We didn't see a lot of people hitting that red forced braking zone. And I know that was actually one of the modifications to the course made after the amateur series last week. So I think we saw a lot smoother efforts today. We didn't see as much acceleration and sprinting out of the turns as we did last week. And that really put the emphasis on that uphill climb and the downhill, I don't want to call it catch up, but maybe churning, that downhill churning effect when everybody was looking for the draft, looking to get ahead or looking to reform the group.
And then last question, as we've talked about a lot this season, the importance of prep and recon. Have you had a chance to take a look at the Benton Course Park tomorrow?
Not yet. That's tonight's homework. I only have enough room in here for one course at a time.
All right, congratulations on a win today, and we'll be looking for you out there tomorrow for day 2 of the Virtual Gateway Cup.
Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon.
All right, so Jackie Godby takes the win today with just less than half a second ahead of Laura Matson-Coe at 0.289 seconds behind, with Kirsten Pohl holding on to a third-place finish for Canyon Esports, with Christina Grossman taking 4th and Christy Tracy rounding out the top 5 today. So solid rides all around for our women's field as Jackie Godby adds one more win to her resume, and certainly going to be another one to watch tomorrow as Godby tries to continue her march into racing. Let's see if we can bring in Laura Matson-Coe in second place overall for the second place overall on the day for the Evoc bike, now the insured team, as the team showed a really impressive ride together and got Laura Matson-Coe up into second place. A new rider joining us here in the Echelon Racing. Laura, can you hear us?
Absolutely. Hello.
Hey, so congratulations on the ride. First off, an impressive ride against Jackie Godby, because there are very few riders that can take Godby to the line. Were you aware of the riders in this field today? I mean, were there riders with a target on their back for you today?
Not at all. I was really out here to learn about RGT, have fun. I find this like kind of lower stress, more playful environment, because I think we're all still learning the game. A lot of slingshotting as people are learning how to feather on, feather off, and I wasn't really targeting anybody. Jackie was on my USA team recently. I adore her. She's amazing. She's also a soon-to-be MD, so really was out here to learn and play and had a blast.
Talk about how important that learning curve is, because we've been watching pretty much every rider in this race go through the curve. We're all coming to RGT as pretty new riders to the platform. I mean, is it a significant difference from Zwift? What's the biggest difference for you on RGT versus Zwift?
I do feel like it's a big difference. I actually had a meeting with some of the guys on our team, Tom Trawl and Neil, who've done well recently, just to kind of try to get the scoop on it. And one of the things they were really talking about was how to go in and out of these corners. obviously in Zwift you can just hammer and go, 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 go. But trying to learn how to come in and out of the corners is super fun.
Anything change for you tomorrow? I mean, what did you learn today going into a much more technical course tomorrow in Benton Park? A few more corners on that course.
Yeah, I think that one of the big things is just being mentally alert. So I have 2 little kids at home and trying to get a good night's sleep and kind of get them tucked in with their grandparents well before the race so that we can get my head into it and get ready to really focus and just work on timing.
All right, Laura, congratulations and good luck tomorrow as we look forward to day 2 of the virtual Gateway Cup.
Thank you so much.
Well, certainly going to be interesting to watch after the riders shake off the cobwebs from the holiday week break in racing, and now everyone back to it with Jackie Godby getting right back to her old winning ways with the win. Laura Matson-Coe in second, and Kirsten Pohl of the Canyon Esports team in third. We're going to see a lot more of them tomorrow as the racing continues at Benton Park for day 2 of the virtual Gateway Cup. We have an 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time broadcast start with an 11:10 race start for our pro men. So congratulations to all of our winners here from the virtual Giro della Montagna. For Frankie Andreu, my name is Brad Soner saying thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow for the Benton Park Criterium at the virtual Gateway Cup.